Hi, everyone. Welcome on in. How are y'all doing today? How's everyone doing today? Smikes? Smikes?
You too. Bless you.
Hi, Devs. Hi, Devs. RPG Fano, RPG. Thank you for the resub. Hit it, Cliff! Hi, Cliff House from McLean. Skip! Skip, you've been very, very naughty today. Skip the bell. Mon!
You are wholesome as ferret. Yay!
Hi, Mon. The ants today, chat, are actually quite active. They are doing a much, much nicer job today. I don't know if you can see from this particular angle, but along the branch at the bottom, there's a bunch of workers going back and forth. So they've been doing... There's been obviously no change today. I didn't add any more leaves today. I did nothing extra today that would indicate any reason for there to be any kind of new event. But when I was firing up the camera, if you look at this angle here, if you look right there, you see there's little ants crawling right down there, and they're bringing leaves over from the foraging chamber. There you go. You see some walking across. There's some more right there. It's pretty remarkable. Hi, you! Also, let me scroll back. First today, not even a competition anymore. Not even a competition. We do have the amazing Smikes has claimed first again. Hello, Smikes. Debs! Hello, NMD96 Milas. Mr. B.
Boss, got any grapes?
Big Gamey. The lovely Bits Gamey. How are you doing, Bits Gamey? Tactics. Hello, Tactics. Again, PG fan of Peekaboo Draws. Michael R. Hassler. Michael R. Hassler wondering if today we got haircutted. Michael R. Hassler, did I get haircutted today? The correct answer. The correct answer, Michael R. Hassler, with 44,967 channel points on the line, is a resounding no. Is a resounding no. Is a resounding no. Nightbot. Nightbot's being a bit silly. Jimmy, hello. Skip, I know what you did today, Skip. TD Fox, hello. Dez, hello. Welcome on in. How are you, everyone doing today? Mon, it is so amazing to see you. The lovely and amazing Mon is in his house. Mon, how are you doing today? Michael R. Hassler. V, hello, V. Thank you for being worth reselling. No, RPG. I can't take that, RPG. Can I take that, V? How are you doing today, V? How was your day, V? How was everyone's day? Music Girl, you did try Music Girl, but Music Girl on top of anything, Music Girl. You remember that fancy sword that you have. Just remember that. Just remember that. I was showing Mom, the latest story of Alona. She's got my eyes. She's got my eyes, Mon. Beyond that, I think she's got some shape, facial shapes.
You're not children anymore.
Hi, Zen.
I didn't mind explaining photosynthesis to you when you were 12, but you're adults now, and this is an actual crisis. Got it?
I am Zen. I like that so much better now there's an animation with it. Went on a big hike last night. Slept all day today. Good, and feeling healthy. Good! Mon, that's awesome. Chat, Mon, by the way, is an amazing artist and game dev extraordinaire. The one, the only legendary everyday gamer, and a.k.a. Mon.
Gucci.
Please go check out Mon, who said yesterday that she would get me a Gucci sound alert. And she told me to bully her about it, and I totally forgot that until this moment that Smike said Gucci, and I was thinking
You're
Mon.
Gucci? I'm Gucci.
At the same time. In fact, at the same time, I thought that, chat. Same time. Folks! Where are we starting tonight? No, you're not behind Smikes. We haven't gotten the sound clip yet. From the lovely Mon. What are we... I don't know where to start tonight, okay? Which is craziness.
We'll all be Gucci.
That was Jimmy B93, folks. The lovely Mr. B, Jimmy B93. So... Which science... It is Science News of the Hour. So, well, first of all, hello, everyone. Welcome on in. My name is Balint. 1/3 of Science News. We're having a Gucci time. For those of you watching on YouTube, hello. from the past and the future, maybe wherever you are. We are doing science news of the week tonight, and I want to know where y'all want to start tonight. So we have screaming plants, talking bees, and beetle butt water. Those are your options right there. I have preferences, but I will let y'all go ahead and get started and decide where y'all want to be able to go to. All right. There is the poll. Y'all can go ahead and vote on where to start. Going to go all Irish? Beautiful. Butt water indeed, peekaboo. Hi, Coffee Rocks. How you doing, Coffee Rocks? Welcome in. Do they scream, feed me, Smikes? No, they scream of pain. Yes, we may have just made it dark, Smikes. You know what, Smikes? It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine, Smikes. Everything is fine. The plant one, I think, is really, really fascinating because there's so much about plant communication that we don't understand. The researchers do point out whether or not it's actual screaming. They define what a scream is, which I think it's an interesting thing to be like, oh, that's a good thing that they defined. But they define what a scream is based on this paper, which is quite remarkable. And then, yeah, we'll get into it depending on where people are interested in going today. But again, the plants are kind of interesting. Scream is a human construct. Whoa. So, Smikes, we can go ahead and start delving into that. I should probably get some sleep at the pet store. What are you doing at the pet stores then? For Sanji? Smike, so if you would suggest that a scream is sound that has an information associated with it, that has intent, I would argue that is not necessarily a human construct, but that is sound emitted from a certain creature with the intent of creating and spreading information. And if that is what defines a scream, then there are intent, as in information needs to be passed between individuals. Like, there is an informational intent beyond this. Screaming plants it is! Screaming plants it is, folks. Alright! By the way, these plants right here, probably screaming. Probably screaming, these plants right here. So, let me play you a sound. We're gonna turn off the ants. I'm gonna play you a sound. So, is a growing plant seedling? Not quite, Zen. Not quite. I will, It does sound a little bit like bubbles popping as well. This is talking about Seinfeld not screaming. What do you... Wait, I'm not... Now I'm totally lost, Mikes. I'm totally lost. By the way, folks, the prediction is live of how many topics we're going to finish tonight. You can make sure to vote on how many topics we'll finish tonight. It's the birthday song. Not quite, Andrew. So, let me actually take you to the paper. Those are the sounds of a plant shouting. They're emitting noise. So, we're going to go back in time a little bit. We're going to go back in time and define what we know about plant communication up until this paper. This paper was published in the journal Cell. That is... if not the top journal in the biological sciences, one of the top 3. It's usually a run-in between Cell, Science, or Nature. I would say Cell is the most rigorous, where in Cell you're allowed more than 3 figures, and you have allowed a lot of supplementary material, and you have to really, really prove your findings. Like, you have to really adequately do it. SciAnts is a little bit more loosey-goosey, where they go for the sexy articles, where even if the science is not the most sound, but it sounds really cool, and it's going to attract a lot of eyeballs to the journal, they'll let it in. And then the third one is Nature, which is a little bit of the blend of the two. It's a little bit more, it feels more rigorous on the whole than SciAnts, but it's not as rigorous as Cell. So it still kind of goes for sometimes the sexy topics, versus Cell is just like, this needs to blow the world out of the water. We don't care if it's the next, like, all-powerful article, but it does need to be very rigorously done. Interpreted in a greenhouse setting, are we saying plants don't like being confined in small greenhouse planters? No. So Zen, that is a great quote. Hold on, Zen. Hold on, Zen's house. Before we get to that question, Zen, let's shout out our amazing friend, Mr. Jimmy B93, who streamed for 7 hours today. Zen, did you know this? This Jimmy streamed for 7 hours, game and talking about the Mario movie. Yeah. It's madness. It's madness. It's mad. He also, Zen, has a new hat, and he's also got this brand new mug that's the giant, it's the length of a boot, like a giant cowboy boot that you can fill up with a beverage item. And he liked this boot so much that he was photographed at the baseball game by baseball game photographers, and he went up on the website. I mean, we know that's pretty cool, Zen. We know it's pretty cool. Filled with an adult, yes, it is. Not well. You had clearly had it filled with water, Jimmy, because you were wanting to hydrate, sir. And he did get in the neck. Music girl, you know that happens. That happens. That happens. Andrew, how the heck are you doing today, sir? You handsome devil. Andrew, I started thawing my ham for Sunday. You know what that means, Andrew. You know what that means. Andrew's like, yes, I know. Oh, the Easter ham is hitting. The Easter ham is hitting. Andrew's like, excellent, excellent, yes. Not my butt. It was a little bit chillier today, Smikes. I did take the little one on a walk. But she actually hasn't been doing great today. She's been very fussy today. Easter turkey. I really don't enjoy turkey that much, Andrew. I enjoy one kind of turkey, and that is the turkey from Honey Baked Ham. Yes, does that sound insane? I know. You like turkey from a ham place. But most other turkey, Andrew, is dry and just not enjoyable at all. And I just rather not have anything to do with those kinds of turkeys. Like, I know it's silly, Andrew, but, like, what else are we gonna do? I got a small one for Christmas for my coworker, and then using it on Jimmy. Oh, the Nerf gun, yes. Either on turkey night. That's why the honey baked ham turkey is the best turkey. I know the feeling it'll be great to feel great in the morning. I hope so. I hope so. When 2 different press people get your photo with the set bat, and then you convince 3 other people to get said bat. Oh, it absolutely is, Jimmy. Jimmy, did your team win the sports ball game? I enjoy turkey sandwiches. Almost worth roasting a turkey just for the Sammys. If made well, RPG. Again, if it's super dry, it's just going to rub your throat, and it's not going to be tasty. A long awaited Gucci that even said it's Gucci in Irish. Oh my God, Mon. Thank you, Mon. Thank you, Mon. 6-1. Was this was one of them baseball games? Our team very much won the sports ball game. Very good, Jimmy. Very good. I assume, Jimmy, it was that one. Bail because we were so cold wearing shorts. Music girl, it is cold here as well. It is like the temperature went down today, and as we were walking, it got even colder and colder, like on our walk today. So I'm like, oh, that's very strange that it was always like that. But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Okay. Yeah, we've recounted these beautiful components of the world. Let's also give a shout out to our amazing friend Andrew CZ, who's built like a Greco-Roman god, extremely handsome, extremely kind, extremely loving, workout streamer and technical wizard. We love you, Andrew CZ. We love you, Andrew. Postpone tonight's game because it's currently 25 in upstate New York. Music girl, one alternative would just be moving out of New York. Eventually. 2 a.m. and my family wondering Mon, that is beautiful. You're like, Monique, are you alright? Yes. Why are you saying Gucci?
Gucci.
It's all Gucci, folks. Don't worry about it. Get out. That's where that would have progressed if it was me. To get out of the house. I would have been yeeted, yat, and gotten. I know, and I don't know. I don't know, Big Gaming. Big Gaming, I'm not sure, Big Gaming. I'm not sure. Now, hi, Mom Boss Lady. Welcome on in, ma'am. How are you doing today? So the title of the article: Sounds emitted by plants under stress are airborne and informative. It's actually quite quite straightforward title. And Smikes, Mon has said their name here before. In fact, Gwendolyn P. calls Mon by her name. And see, there she did said it again. So Smikes, we're all kinds of Gucci. I would never dox anyone intentionally or otherwise, except for you. And that was totally an accident, sir. That was... I got so excited that I had to say your name, Smikes. I haven't said it again. But, you know, I got excited. Got your blood work done? I got some blood work done today, Mom Boss Lady, as well. Most sound is airborne. It is. So the reason Smike there... Zing, you shocked, Ellie! It's okay, Zen. It's okay that you shocked Ellie, Zen. It's okay. Got blood work done, but I'm a vampire, so I'm not sure it's the same as you all. So, Bit, you are not a vampire. You know how? Because when you look into the camera on your stream, which at Big Gaming streams Monday, Wednesday, Friday at around 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we see you. If you were a vampire, the camera would show like floating glasses. You can't argue with that, Big Game. That's hardcore Logicus right there. Hardcore Logicus. Nope. Now you've been nerfed, Big Gammy. My god, a mod has been nerfed. Goodness gracious me. Unless it's a mirrorless... Oh my god, Jinx with the 2 other mods. Alright, well... That's fair. That's very fair. Okay. The title of the paper is very straightforward. As Mike said, there is usually sound that travels through air. That's pretty standard for how these things work. But... it's still something that needs to be proven in the system where it's kind of wild to think that plants communicate. So if plants are indeed communicating by sound, we would like to confirm in this paper that yes, it is in fact traveling through the air and detected by other plants. Okay, that is one thing that I think they're doing their due diligence to prove this. You're actually a VTuber, so Bit Gaming. It's okay if you are. I'm not going to be nervous. You're not going to be nervous. No one's going to be at all nervous about you being a VTuber. I'm still going to love you either way. It's okay, Bit Gaming. What are the highlights of the paper? We're going to click on the highlights, and then we're going to actually go back. We're going to go back.
Like me a little bit?
Ew, I don't even like you a little bit.
I heard you like me a little bit.
Well, maybe just a little bit.
Bit Game, he's making a game called I'm a Dog or Dog's Life, so it is confusing Zen. But he's maybe nothing but a hound dog, Zen's house, just like the breathtaking supermodel that is Yogurt Garrel, who's in his house, folks. Yogurt Garrel, supermodel across the country, Canada.
Curiouser and curiouser.
A movie aficionado, our red carpet connection to all things movies, professional Tetris 99 player, extraordinaire, and an absolute legend. Yogurt Garrel, madame, how the heck are you doing? Guys, go check out Yogurt Garrel, who is on her a partner Poosh. We were talking about your cinematic masterpiece favorite, that is Scream. Why? This paper. So Yogurt, Screaming Plants is the colloquial of how this works. It's not... So the researchers go and define what a scream is. They suggest that a scream is sound emitted by an individual that has intent. They go out of their way. This is a paper in Cell. This is not some jabroni. TD Fox, those are custom sound alerts for VIPs and the mods they're associated with, so you don't actually have access to those. They go out of their way to say this is actually not screaming because they cannot prove.
Like me a little bit?
Ew, I don't even like you a little bit.
I heard you like me a little bit.
Well, maybe just a little bit.
They can't prove that there is intent behind these plants' actions. They can't tell if it's a byproduct of an injury, that there is sound emitted, or there is actually a warning intentional mechanism happening in this situation. And that's why they're saying it. Which lab it is out from? It is from the Lilac Hadani lab. The Lilac Hadani lab. And let's see, they're located... it probably says near the end. Gwen, they're doing well. Gwen, if you look along the bottom, we were seeing them walk back and forth on the branches. So we were seeing the ants actually walk back and forth in the branches. They were actually collecting the leaves. I did nothing today, Gwen, which is all the more frustrating because if I did something different and it led to the ants behaving differently, that would have been amazing. But no, of course, I did nothing at all. I just left them alone. And now, Gwen, they're like, okay, we'll start cutting. Yeah, it's very weird. Gwen, you want to hear a sound? Absolutely, you can hear a sound, Gwendolyn P. Thank you for the booties in the face. Smokes. So those are the sounds, Gwen, over the course of an hour. This is a, let me grab you the actual species. Come on, where is the actual genus species? Where did we go? Airborne sounds, many animals. Come on now, chat. Yep. So they did 2 plants. That's what I thought. Before I gave you the wrong answer, they did 2 plants. They did both tomato plants and they did tobacco plants as well. So because they did both, it's even more interesting that both plants did this particular behavior. It's not a weird fluke of one plant. That's what I think makes it really interesting. Gwen, if it was just a tomato plant, you could argue, okay, is this just a weird byproduct? But because by choosing both, I think it makes it all the more interesting. Tomatoes trying to... No. Don't worry, Smikes. Don't worry, Smikes. Well, the graphical abstract is actually a good place to start. I wish... Come on now. I wish more labs would do this. Hold on. This is so silly sometimes. The Cell server is having an issue where you try to open the figure in the paper, and it's just not cool. It's not cool. They tested different. Yeah, we'll talk about the stress they tested. We'll talk about all the components. I will take us back to see, because we need to set the stage. We need to set the stage as to what was done. Thank you, TD Fox. You're amazing. What was known before this paper? Because if this paper would have come out by itself, that would have not been believed. There's a lot of work that this is built on. They are using ultrasonic sound. The sound that you heard is lowered into the hearing range of humans and condensed. So the frequency at which that they make these sounds is about 30 to 35 clicks per hour. And it's at a higher frequency than when we're able to hear. So that's one big thing that you have to be able to demonstrate, right? There's also, they did test 2 stresses, as Cliff mentioned. See, a plant doesn't like not getting watered. It is really scared of scissors and loves the alone time. That's all I get from the picture. So Zen, it is having negative responses from drought. It's having negative responses from cutting, and then it emits a totally different sound at a much lower frequency when it is not being stressed by anything. So there is a baseline amount of sound, and that sound is fundamentally different in terms of frequency and in terms of what it sounds like when it's, like, it is. Yeah, I guess it's as Cliff kind of might say, it's almost like a little bit of a purr, as a like a cat's self-soothing purr. Maybe we actually don't know, as Cliff points out, if there's any intent behind any of these sounds. Did they test how? So no. So Nye, they actually went out of their way in an interview and in the method. So actually, because this is a cell paper, there's this thing called STAR methods. And it means that the paper itself has a very abridged methodology section. And there's not really a lot of information. So there's actually an outlink to the method section where it's more involved. But they actually, in the methods, they go through and talk about, all the individual things that they utilized. But they went out of their way to show that they had they built a special acoustic box that contained the sound within the box, and they actually went out of their way to say it was in the basement of the building, away from, like, I think they said they left a one floor gap between where people were actively doing experiments and, like, anything else as well. Did they play any other plant songs back to like a plant concert? So that is a great question, Andrew. So quickly just see which one it was. So that, I believe, is a future directions component that they were looking at. Yeah, so that was a future direction that they wanted to point out, because what they're doing in here. Hi, Crux. No sorries, Crux. No sorries. No sorries at all. 1950. I do, Gwen. But Gwen, this is tomato or tobacco. If they talk in ultrasonic, we might have to talk to them in ultrasound too. So, Cliff, there is not necessarily any evidence one way or another, right? So if the question is, do plants respond to our voices and our sounds? They might not be able to detect it because they communicate in ultrasonic wavelengths. Or they might be able to detect it as well. We don't know their hearing range. But let's actually take a few steps back and let's learn about what did we know before this about plant communication. Because this seems, I don't know about y'all, it seems a little bit, Smikes indeed, it seems a little bit wild to start where the plants are making clicking sounds. Where did these ideas come from, and why did they test them? Maybe let's listen to a wider range of spectra, maybe just between them. Gwen, there could be a couple of different factors of what ranges they can hear. It could be that they hear different ranges or respond to different ranges because they want specificity. You don't want to hear the shouting of a different species. Maybe the other species that's shouting about a drought, you're much more drought tolerant and you don't need to hear that. Versus, or it could be the opposite, Gwen, right? Maybe they want to hear their neighbors and eavesdrop on them to allow them to better prepare for incoming stress. Either could work, but it's hard to test to it. They may be able to listen to what... Yes, exactly. Hi, Lady Laura Croft. How you doing, Lady Laura Croft? All I know of plant communication is the mycelial network. So, Zen, that is one component of how plants communicate, but actually, there is about at least a good 15 years of work demonstrating that there is olfactory communication between plants. So they emit a thing called a volatile organic compound, Zen, or a VOC. And we'll talk about what that means and how they do so. Let's go ahead and start here. We'll start with what Zen mentioned, which is the mycelial network. Not obviously it's too early to speculate, but one wonders how plants can use this info though. Like being afraid of scissors is great. Not helping the tomato next to you is a great way from getting away from the scissors. So we will in fact now go into the biology of why this may have evolved. But now imagine though it's not scissors, but a herbivorous threat. So the scissors are simulating an animal eating the plant. And that could be the reason why they're scared. Jomio, oh Jomio, wherefore art thou, Jomio? Deny thy father and refuse thy name. Jomio. Jomio. Oh, Jomio. Chad, if you're not checking out the lovely and amazing, breathtaking Jomio, you're not doing Live Friday. Jomio, an amazing artist extraordinaire. We love you, Jomio. How you doing tonight? And Darren! Hello, Darren. What are you doing, Darren? Welcome in, Darren. Welcome on in, Darren. What happens if the community night goals are not met? No. Then they get refunded, Gwen. It's an automatic refund if the community nights are not met, Gwendolyn P. I think I can also extend the timer. Maybe. Possibly? Potentially. I don't know. Jomio, we're talking about plants. We're talking about plants that can communicate. And the study that just came out, that these plants are able to communicate via sound. So it's almost like plants are screaming at one another that, hey, there is a predatory threat, or there is a nutritional threat, or there is something that is negatively impacting our fitness via sound. Which I think is really cool, that there's something like that. We don't fully understand how it all works yet, and there's a lot of questions to be asked, but we're on our way to learning. Snoop Dogg into his house? A lot about it. We're on our way to learning a lot about it. Is Boyd's here? Boyd's not here. Smike's being naughty. Travel the world! Hello, Travel the world. How you doing, Travel the world? Currently stacking on some fruits and just chilling. What kind of fruits? What kind of fruits, Jomio? Jomio, what is your favorite fruit? Chat, what's your favorite fruit? I love peaches. Georgia peaches and kiwis. Strawberries. Currants. My God, I love a good currant. I miss currants.
Gucci.
I miss currants. So, we're going to delve into first what we knew about plant communication. And then we'll go into what the new paper talks about in terms of the plant communication. We want to set the stage for what we knew beforehand. Dates. Nice, Andrew. What did she look like? Raspberries and strawberries. They are quite delicious. Pineapple, kiwi, strawberries. Nice. Thank you, Andrew. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Andrew. It just had to be done, Andrew. Kiwi, oranges, bananas, and grapes. My favorite oranges for sure. Nice, Jomio. We need to get you to Florida, where I would argue they have the best oranges in Florida. Pineapple too mushy. Have it frozen, Smikes. Have it frozen. It'll be delicious. Chat. Let's hear about some baseline of plant communication before we learn that they scream at one another. Can they hear and communicate, or is it screaming in distress? So, Coffee. they did have a question. Oh my goodness, Coffee Rocks. I do not know. Here we go. Okay, let's go back to this figure of Coffee. So Coffee Rocks, in this figure, they kind of outline the plans of the paper. And what they do, actually, let's zoom in further because it's difficult to get. So they create a sound library almost, Coffee. So it's like, if we stress out the tomato plants in this particular way, then that's glorious, right? That we have those signs. I'm just noticing. There we go. They stress out the plants via water deprivation and simulating herbivorous stress. That herbivorous stress and the water stress are two different kinds of stressors, and they're wondering whether or not they emit sound. What they end up doing is they put them into this very like nested acoustic box. There's no other sounds that are coming in and out. They get a mass list of these sounds. Smikes, you are being so naughty tonight. You are being so naughty tonight, Smikes. Hi, Alex. How you doing, Alex Vixen? There's butts everywhere, Alex. Alex.
Thank you for the booties in the face.
I got booties in the face. I got booties in the face.
I can't. I just don't. People. Smarts. I don't people.
There you go. Y'all, look at the handsome Jomio up at the top of the screen. Look at the handsome Jomio on top of the screen. So, Coffee, they have this network classifier that they build. I'm not... Look, Smikes. A little bit. Smikes, did I have 10 pieces of carrots for dinner? I may have. Is that questionable for dinner? Yeah. Yep. Smikes. Saving up for the ham. The ham is still thawing, Andrew. The ham is still thawing. So, what they did was they got these sounds, and so what they had to do is to filter out the greenhouse sounds, Coffee Rocks, because you know there's going to be ambient sounds in there, as well as whatever the plants are emitting. So you have these two boxes. Hi, Bots to Beats. How you doing, Bots to Beats? Is the real thing? Everyone wants to know, do the sounds actually... yes. So yes, that is true, Bots. That's what we're getting into. Welcome on in, Bots. So, they filter out the background noise in the greenhouse and compare it to what, like, is it an empty box versus what's in the box with the plant. And they filter out, so they essentially have these red sound waves and these black sound waves. They filter out the black, so you just have the red sound waves, which they know are supposedly contain information. And what they end up doing is they did play back the sounds, and they found that the sounds do actually have a feedback loop. So if you play these stressed sounds to other tomato plants, they will also have those also emit sounds. So there is a response to the sound. Now, Bots, the next step is gonna be the thing that answers your question fully, which is, what are the genetic changes associated with playing these sounds to plants? Right? Meaning, on the molecular level, what changes?
Gucci.
If it does, that would be Gucci. Without that, it's just a sound that's being emitted, and it could be a byproduct of something. But it did look like there is, at least they have the ability to detect it. What is the genetics behind the detection? That we do not know. That we do not know yet. So there hasn't been like the genetics for that. Need food, not 100% tease or smart tail. We'll be back in a few moments. Go have some delicious food, Alex. Maybe a nice sandwich, as you say, Alex. Or something glorious. So bots, we're going to get into more of the paper in just a moment. But let's actually look and see what did we know about plants before this study. So let's set the framework for it.
Most of the forest lives in the shadow of the giants that make up the highest canopy. These are the oldest trees, with hundreds of children and thousands of grandchildren. They check in with their neighbors, sharing food, supplies, and wisdom gained over their long lives. They do all this rooted in place, unable to speak, reach out, or move around. The secret to their success lies under the forest floor, where vast root systems support the towering trunks above. Partnering with these roots are symbiotic fungi called mycorrhizae.
Now, this particular study is looking at the underground system of how these plants communicate. Now, the study that we're looking at actually has the plants in 2 different containers. And because they're in 2 different containers, their root systems can't interact. So it does rule out this as like a byproduct of how they're actually corresponding.
These fungi have countless branching thread-like hyphae that together make up the mycelium. The mycelium spreads across a much larger area than the tree root system and connects the roots of different trees together. These connections form mycorrhizal networks. Through mycorrhizal networks, fungi can pass resources and signaling molecules between trees. We know the oldest trees have the largest mycorrhizal networks with the most connections to other trees, but these connections are incredibly complicated to trace.
I'm not sure what a pando is, bots.
That's because there are about 100 species of mycorrhizal fungi, and an individual tree might be colonized by dozens of different fungal organisms, each of which connects to a unique set of other trees, which in turn each have their own unique set of fungal associations. To get a sense of how substances flow through this network, let's zoom in on sugars, as they travel from a mature tree to a neighboring seedling.
We know about this as the largest organs in the forest. I believe so. Pando is a clonal colony of an individual male quaking aspen. I have no idea what those words mean, bots. I don't know what quaking aspen is, and so I need much more aspen for trivia. Don't remember it, Cliff. Do not remember it. Aspen is something inappropriate that you do at a petting zoo. They rewatched Avatar, and they had a throwaway scene where they talked about the networking plants. There is that, yeah. And I think, Andrew, because they stole that from Pocahontas as well. Remember Grandmother Willow? Grandmother Willow is connected to everything. Same principle.
Sugar's journey starts high above the ground, in the leaves of the tallest trees above the canopy. The leaves use the ample sunlight up there to create sugars through photosynthesis. This essential fuel then travels through the tree to the base of the trunk in the thick sap. From there, sugar flows down to the roots. Mycorrhizal fungi encounter the tips of the roots and either surround or penetrate the outer root cells, depending on the type of fungi. Fungi cannot produce sugars, though they need them for fuel just like trees do. They can, however, collect nutrients from the soil much more efficiently than tree roots, and pass these nutrients into the tree roots. In general, substances flow from where they are more abundant to where they are less abundant, or from source to sink. That means that the sugars flow from the tree roots into the fungal hyphae. Once the sugars enter the fungus, they travel along the hyphae through pores between cells, or through special hollow transporter hyphae. The fungus absorbs some of the sugars, but some travels on and enters the roots of a neighbouring tree, a seedling that grows in the shade and has less opportunity to photosynthesize sugars. But why does fungus transport resources from tree to tree? This is one of the mysteries of the mycorrhizal networks. It makes sense for fungus to exchange soil nutrients and sugar with a tree. Both parties benefit. The fungus likely benefits in less obvious ways from being part of a network between trees, but the exact ways aren't totally clear. Maybe the fungus benefits from having connections with as many different trees as possible, and maximize its connections by shuttling molecules between trees. Or maybe plants reduce their contributions to fungi if the fungi don't facilitate exchanges between trees. Whatever the reasons, these fungi pass an incredible amount of information between trees.
And there's a good series of informative things that we have no idea what they actually communicate about. Like there is about various stressors, presumably sugar content, other information that happens in the given area. But there's probably a bunch more that we don't know about that they're actually communicating, because it's very hard to moderate this. Analogy of network packets. So bots, remember, I'm a biologist. Network packets, I do not understand well enough to make an analogy. That I'll leave to the network technicians.
Through the mycorrhizae, trees can tell when nutrients or signaling molecules are coming from a member of their own species or not. They can even tell when information is coming from a close relative, like a sibling or parent. Trees can also share information about events like drought or insect attacks through their fungal networks, causing their neighbors to increase production of protective enzymes in anticipation of threats. The forest's health relies on these intricate communications and exchanges. With everything so deeply interconnected, what impacts one species is bound to impact others. So trees can sound the alarm during an emergency, but how exactly do they defend themselves?
We can go into how they defend themselves, but more importantly, that is one means of communication that they have through this mycelial network. There is a second video that we're not going to watch tonight, but I will post onto the Discord. It's a long TED talk that it's talking about the same component of there being this communication via the mycelial network. Now, there are other ways that the plants can communicate. For example, thank you, Zim, for the nerf. So the primary way that I've studied and been involved in some plant research is communication through VOCs, or volatile organic compounds. Now, Smikes asked earlier tonight if VOCs are a means that we can get cancer. And yes, there are volatile organic compounds that can intercalate into your DNA. What intercalation means is that it inserts into your DNA a molecule, a reactive molecule. And when it does, it can break your DNA strand, and when it repairs, it is repaired incorrectly. And that is a cancer-causing agent. This particular one, the volatile organic compound, is not inductive of cancer, but rather it's the base definition of the word. Volatile means it evaporates into the air, and it is a compound that has a string of carbons. Intercalate. Bots, let me actually grab the correct spelling, because this might be one where I'm... There we go. Here you go, bots. I actually have the word. Lita didn't believe me for the longest time that it was a real thing. But here is the definition for you as well, bots. Because we had a cat named Taco, and I would say when I was running around Taco, one of my nicknames for Taco I would tell him, "Oh, intercalation. Why? I don't know, chat. You know I'm strange." And I would argue, I'd be like, "Oh, he's gonna intercalate," and it's just because he intercalated into our hearts. It's weird. Let's not get too far into the delves of Balent's word. So Gwen says, do they mention the recording? Yes, they do, Gwen. We can go into the recording equipment as well. I'm not an auditory expert, but We can look into it. So oak tree can communicate with pine tree. So coffee rocks. Here is the thing that's really cool about it. Coffee, when... Oh, and those numbers were references, Cliff. Those are references that didn't carry over with the copy-paste. What we don't know, Coffee, is if two species of trees are actively trying to communicate with one another, or if two species of trees do never try to actively communicate with one another, they just happen to overhear and eavesdrop into what's happening. So actually, Coffee, let me draw this out, Coffee Rocks. You might be like, Blint, why are we drawing this out? Coffee, we know Blint's a little crazy time. We know Blint's a little crazy time and loves drawing. But so this is like the current state of knowledge that we have. So if we have, I will draw the trees in different colors so that we kind of have an idea. So if we have, you know, tree number 1 and tree number 2, well, you know, we'll add leaves to them, Coffee. We'll add happy leaves to each of them. And the question for you, Coffee, is, do these trees, we'll make a couple, do they only communicate within their own species, or do they communicate between species as well? And the answer is, it's complicated. We do know, Coffee Rocks, that this phenomena does happen, because if you take, thank you, Music Girl. It's Happy Trees. Music Girl. It's Happy Trees. NMD, if you move to Kentucky, you can get blue tree trunks. Do you know why, NMD? They already have bluegrass down there. Thank you, Smikes, for being on the same page with that horrific dad joke. All right, Kentucky bluegrass. Moving on. Now, thank you, NMD. What they did, so actually these experiments, Coffee, are much, much further along. What they did was they took cuttings in these studies. This is not our sound study. This is a totally different study. What they did is they take cuttings from the trees that have been injured, and they do a genetic analysis. Hi, Celadon! Welcome in, Celadon K. How you doing, Celadon K? They look at the transcriptome. They see what changes there are in the differences between the levels of RNA. So if you can imagine, there could be RNA, we're going to call it defensive RNA. So if this is our injured plant, let's say, you would predict that it should have increase in defensive RNA. The question then is, what about this plant? That neighboring plant has never been injured. But if it is receiving information, it might also increase its defensive RNA. And sure enough, both of these, the originally injured plant and the receiver of the information, both have increase in RNA levels. Now, how does this happen? The experiment they did Coffee Rocks, is actually hilarious. I got to set up this experiment in the lab up at Dartmouth. You take a box. All right, Coffee, we have our box. You put a hole in one side and a hole in the other side. At this end, you put a fan. And that's going to spin around. And as it spins, you're going to move the air current this way. All right? Coffee. It looks super janky, but bear with me for 1 second. So, Coffee Rocks. They then took... hi, Cobra. Welcome in. Cobra, they then took potted plants, Coffee Rocks. They took 2 different kinds. And let's say there are plants. Cool. Now what they did was, these are two groups. Either this is group 1, let's say, and this is group 2. In order to prove that it's an odorant, so a volatile organic compound is an odorant that is released from the stressed plant. If it is affecting a neighboring plant, it would only work in a particular order in this experiment. Meaning that condition number 1 is the one that needed to be injured. So the hypothesis being, if we injure the plant here, that should release gases, these volatiles, that because we're in an air tunnel, should be then pushed to the neighboring plants that are never hurt. They only are detecting the odor, and they should be able to respond. If you switch this, what did you get, Alex Vixen? So NMD, this isn't a biologically correct model. This is asking, like, is it truly the odorant? So NMD, if you switch these two situations, if you put 2 here and 1 here, the plants that you injured on this side, then if you put them in the wind tunnel, the odors would get pushed right out of the air tunnel, and the original plants up top would never see them, right? So that's how you'd have to do the experiment in both directions. And the reason for that is you then will genetically test these plants and see, okay, this one we know we've injured, so we should see certain proteins turned on. In particular, a compound called SA, or salicylic acid. It is a stress response protein that is turned on in plants from injury or most generic kinds of stress. It turns out if you go in this direction, these second plants will also turn on salicylic acid production. If you reverse it, so the ones that are downstream are the ones that are getting injured, and the ones upstream aren't, 2 then does not make salicylic acid, but 1 does. And that's why you have it in that direction. Does that make sense, Melas? Just one of my Frankenstein tomato soup. Ooh, that sounds delicious, Alex. Bots, they are not sharing the same root system. They're actually each plant is in a different pot. How can we detect and measure VOCs in the air and in living organisms? So, Spikes. There is this insane device that is in engineering labs. I say insane because I don't fully understand how the heck it works. The Shadowmax, it is actually Happy Andrew CZ Day. Shadowmax, each of our mods have an animal persona. I don't know why Shadowmax Smikes decided to make every one of our mods an animal. And Andrew is the fit, rugged, and truly handsome beaver. In fact, he's so fit and handsome and rugged that Smikes actually redeemed a 100,000 channel points for me to 3D model a brand new character that is a beaver for the colony. And so I had to model it on Andrew. That's why... Oh, wrong window. That's why the beaver looks like this. As you can see, a glorious pectorals, six-pack, and like lifting things. He's very kind and powerful. Hi, Lady Laura Croft! Welcome in, Lady Laura Croft and Ghost Kitchen! Thank you for the follow, Ghost Kitchen. Welcome in. 41,000 points saying big. What are you gonna say for Jomio? Jomio, wherefore art thou, Jomio? It is Lady Laura Croft. I actually met Andrew IRL, and so this is all modeled after Andrew. When I say how buff he is, that is not being silly. Lady Lara Croft. That is... That bullet was being accurate in this. It's 100%. Andrew can lift things that heavy, too. He's a breathtaking legend. Boy, my friends would not be chasing beaver out of their pond if it looked like that. No, NMD, look, he's a kind beaver. Look, NMD, I think... Okay, listen, NMD. I think that he's got a nice and kind smile. NMD, if he does not, then I truly messed up on this character. But I will say he is fit. And you know, he's ready to lift and have his gains. Beaver has a kind smile. Take me down.
Look at his little feetsies.
Hi, Soup. Welcome in, unofficial Soup. How you doing? Soup, did you know it's National Beaver Day, aka National Andrew Day? See a caption there. Say hello to my little friend. Sometimes. This is also Andrew from the side view. You can see very, very fit and lifting giant logs. It's just, he's all powerful, Chad. He's all powerful. He's all powerful. NMD, you haven't seen any of that, NMD. You're fine. You're fine, NMD. You're totally fine, NMD. It's okay, NMD! I would never model something like that, NMD. Soup, we're talking about plant communication, in particular plant screaming today. And we're doing a little bit of a review for Coffee Rocks. Chomps all the way. Be kind to Alex Vixen, Soup. Don't destroy her meal, Soup. So. Hi, Insanity Party. How are you doing? It is a little bit insane tonight. It is Friday night. We're getting a little bit loosey-goosey. So, how to detect volatiles. So, we had a collaborator in the engineering department at Dartmouth who was going to help us identify and collect Kevins.
5 Kevins.
Insanity Party, you heard about screaming? Yes. We do have some plant screaming that we're chatting about today. So, if you want, Insanity, let me play the sound clip of the actual noise that the plant makes. And then we're going to get into a little bit more of the background as well. But here is the sound that a plant makes when screaming.
Where's my drink?
What drink?
Hi, Jacob. Hey, you need a redeemed cat? Maybe, Jacob, maybe. So, Insanity, that clicking, and Lady Lara Croft, that clicking is right as Bond says. Get that plant some water. So those two, the stressors that we hear are either through scissor, so like they cut the leaves, so it simulates a herbivorous attack, or number two, they don't add water to the plant's pot, and then it's drying out. That particular sound, so Coffee Rocks, they click about 35 times an hour when under stress. So that has been condensed into 30 seconds. And it is also, it's a higher frequency than what you and I could hear. So they've changed it and put it into the frequency range that we humans can detect. So there's a couple of addendums to it that we don't fully understand. Like, you know, it's so that we can actually process what they're saying. We wouldn't be able to hear it there. Wow, yeah, we don't know what the plants are utilizing, bots, yet in terms of like what exactly is creating. There's one hypothesis, bots, although it hasn't been proven, They suggested that there could be bubbles forming and popping in the tissues of the plant. However, they have not proven that, bots. It is just a hypothesis. They're not one way or another set on what exactly it is. Yeah, so Cliff, it's again, they didn't go anywhere in the paper of proving what it was, but rather it was just that there was some popping sounds that were going on, like it within like the water vacuoles of the cells of the plant at the side of it. But we don't fully understand. We don't fully understand how it works. Roald Dahl wrote a short. Alex, the last Roald Dahl story was the BFG. I think I read. I don't know if I've seen all of them. I don't know if I've seen all of them at this point. On TikTok, there's some channels which record plant music. It's just connecting the leaves. Really, insanity. That's interesting. Back in 1949. Gotcha. No, Alex, I think I may have missed that. But I do like Roald Dahl. I'll have to check it out, Alex. How do we know it's not just a byproduct of plant metabolism? So, Cliff, that is a great question. We don't know. That is one very big point of this whole paper, Cliff, that they go out of their way to say. And even, Cliff, I read an interview with the authors. Cliff, this is from the lead author. Cliff, saying... Hold on. Let me grab the right quote. I'll make sure I'm grabbing the right quote from this gentleman. You cut a tomato and it screams. But screaming assumes the plant is intentionally making noise. In the new study, we've only shown that plants emit informative sounds. Meaning that when they put a naive plant with the sounds, there is a change in behavior. Does that mean that it's a byproduct of metabolism? Maybe. They do go out of the way to say there is no intent. They can't prove intent yet, Cliff. And I don't know how they would be able to do it either. Unofficial Soup says, is the first step on the way to proving that the cinematic class to have. I have not seen that movie, Soup. If it's a scary movie, I have not seen it. Scary movie, then I have not seen it. So, really quickly, we're going back to the question Smikes had, which was, again, plants we know can communicate via volatile organic compounds. This is the drawing that we did. We're showing that salicylic acid actually is a volatile. What happens is it is absorbed by the downstream plant in this wind tunnel, and it reacts to the stress. How they measured that was they actually then took a clipping of this plant that was affected. Let me actually make a brighter color. And then they measured RNA levels, and they found that the RNA levels are decreasing and increasing in a way that they've changed their behaviors more than if it was just at random chance. They're also actually going into the chromosome structure, and they show that the chromatin structure also changes as a function of detecting the salicylic acid. What I mean by that is, if undetected, if you have the DNA wrapped in these spools like this, so it's very tightly compact. If the plant then responds to this odor, what actually ends up happening is that the chromosome architecture changes, so that a region of chromatin will actually be physically opened up that wasn't opened up before. And it's usually immune genes. These immune genes are primed now for any kind of stress that they might be undergoing later on. Which I think is really cool. About a mimic plant. Andrew, I will work on that. I'm so sorry, sir. I totally forgot. I'm so sorry, Andrew. What about mimic plant, which also has eyes and mimic leaves and neighbor plants, even with plastic plants? Insanity, I am not sure about the mimic plant. So in all the studies that I'm aware of, they are primarily using tomato plants. They're using tobacco plants. Some studies also looked at trees, which is what Coffee Rocks was asking. Coffee Rocks' original question was this whole forest setup, where how those connect. So Coffee, I promise I'm answering your question in some very roundabout way. So Coffee, when they did this experiment, they also switched the plant species. No! Meaning that if this, the first time they did the experiment, let's say this was tomato and this was also tomato, they then switched it as well and had different combinations, Coffee. So let's say they had tobacco and then tomato for the other one. And then they did vice versa as well. And so they did all those different combinations of things to show that not only could plants communicate within a species, but they can communicate between species as well. I don't have the paper in front of me, but based on what I'm hearing, a response to a trigger, whatever the cause, does not equate to a form of communication. Bots, that is very much dependent on whatever paper you're reading. But the most basic definition of communication is information exchange between individuals. That most basic definition does not have the word intent put in, and it can simply be compounds exchanged between two individuals that lead to a different response at the most fundamental level of what communication is. Now there could be other forms. There could be other forms of communication, and further on, like sub-definitions, right? Like there could be, you could question intent. You could also put outcome as a factor, and you could really complicate it. Now, bots, why do I know that? Primarily because there's a lot of insects that we've studied that communicate, whether it be in ants with smell, like you pointed out earlier. Fruit flies can communicate with wing movement, as well as odor, as well as visual cue, and much, much more. Yes, so Coffee Rocks, the salicylic acid is related to aspirin, so it can be a steroid that moves throughout the plant. And so there is, I don't know, Coffee, about if there is in fact any scientific merit in adding crushed up aspirin to roses or flowers. Actually, Coffee, I was told that when we got a Christmas tree, and the person who cut our tree, they cut off the top of the log, like have a fresh cutting, and there was a very, very active question about how, like, to use some aspirin. Like, the gentleman was like, use some aspirin to last longer. Insanity Party! Welcome to the colony and the party. Welcome on in. I don't know, Coffee, if that has been scientifically validated. But, given all these hypotheses that we have, it could make sense. I remember I came home and I told Lita, and Lita, she did she raised an eyebrow, and we started to look for some papers, and at the time, this was 7 years ago, maybe, we couldn't find any evidence at the time. That's not to say that it hasn't been done. It might also be, Coffee, one of those things where it's so common knowledge that no one bothers publishing a paper on it, which unfortunately sometimes does happen as well. But they are similar in structures. Let me pull up the signaling pathway of this. Because it's quite a neat item. Let's see, Google salad. So, this is actually a different cell paper. Andrew, thank you for the look. Andrew, that is currently behind a paywall. Lovely. Hold on. Coffee, this isn't exactly a great figure, but what you see here is that during growth and development cycles, the salicylic acid levels tend to be on the lower side, but when the plant is under attack, there is an increase in salicylic acid levels. That's in red here. And then when the plant is undergoing recovery, it decreases back down, and then the increase is back for growth genes. So as soon as the plant gets under attack, growth is arrested, and the energy is diverted to the fighting off of a pathogen, or like or I guess a threat. It doesn't have to be a pathogen. It could be, and it could be a viral infection. It could be bacterial. It could be an herbivorous challenge. It could also be an environmental stressor, like drought. And so that is a primary molecule that's regulated internally, but it's also a volatile that is then released into the air. And so I remember I had a bunch of figures. Here we go. Salicylic acid in the plant is also, so that you see, you don't need to know what all these molecules are. Essentially, though, salicylic acid is a coactivator to turn on immune genes in the plant. And these immune genes, so it's defense-related genes, proteins, and transcription factors. If you get rid of salicylic acid in the plant, which you can do, Coffee, what that will end up doing is just absolutely killing the immune system of the plant. Hi, Spectre. So Insanity, my background is I have a PhD in molecular and systems biology. I've researched over a decade in fruit fly genetics, behavior, and biology, another 4 or 5 years in ant genetics and behavior. The plant research, so I did a fling in the plant research world. Yeah. So bots, let's not rabbit hole yet into ants. Let's keep it on plants right now, because we will totally nerf our topic if we go off to the other side of the world. But we will, bots, next time, make sure to ask that. Or if we finish the topic tonight, we can remember the question and we'll delve into it. Just because I'm happy to rabbit hole, but I want it to be somewhat tangentially connected to this. So Coffee, the actual synthesis of salicylic acid is here. So it starts with this scilimate. Sleep well, soup. Sleep well, soup. Chorismate, isochorismate, 9 glutamate, and that then is into salicylic acid. So there is the actual breakdown of the molecule. No, sorry, no, Coffee. That is 100% an important question to ask. I think Coffee, again, quite a remarkable molecule. What you can do. Thank you for nerfing that. Coffee, I'm so sorry that had to be nerfed. That was a love nerf, Coffee. Thank you, Alex Fiction. Okay, so Alex found... this is a phrase I still don't remember, but now I know, Alex, what it means is TLDR. About... the additives, and I will post this into the Discord, Coffee. Alex, with your permission, I'll post these links into the Discord. Alex says some studies say yes and others say no. We have lots of shirts. Spectre. We even have hats, Spectre Flight. We even have, Spectre Flight, this amazing water bottle. We even have what do they call them? The beer glasses, Spectre Flight. We even have stickers and magnets, Spectre Flight. We have hard enamel pins, Spectre Flight. We have sweaters, beanies. Steins! Well, not Steins. Steins are so much bigger, I think. I think those are much bigger. Like this. I think. I believe. Possibly. Potentially. Right, the Steins are like the huge ones with like that whole... We do have mugs, though. But yeah, so coffee, it seems like... I will post the links into the Discord because Alex said it was okay. Some studies say there might be something with the additives and others might not be. So we don't... As Jern says, we don't fully understand how that works. But salicylic acid coffee... If you can isolate the compound that is salicylic acid, you can isolate that compound and you can put it onto a plant that has not been stressed out, and it will trigger a stress response in the plant. So that is one way, again, that they further proved that it is, in fact, the volatile that is being passed in the air. So coffee, to take us back to this experiment, what they did, coffee... You've shown now in this study that yes, if you have these the stressed plants, they release a volatile of some sort, and that neighboring plant detects the volatile, and there's a change in its transcriptome, so the DNA and the RNA change levels. The DNA in particular, its structure, the RNA changes its how much is turned on and off. That means there's something in that air. Spectre, even alert, Spectre flight! There's something in the air that is being detected. So what they did, coffee, is they put a machine onto the end of this tube. And it's essentially a cone-like machine. Thank you for the eat! Thank you for the lead, Alex Hickson. The cone, I wish I was just being silly with you, coffee. It looks like a cone, and you put it over a flat surface. Let's change the color. Let's change the color, coffee. You put it over a flat surface. Now, in the case of that other experiment, that flat surface was the outside rim of the box, and all the odors that were coming into it were the things that were being detected. Now, what's really cool about this, Debs! By the way, folks, if you're not checking out lovely and amazing Debs, she's almost hitting those affiliate numbers. She needs a couple of more followers, and she'll be able to hit that affiliate goal. So please check out our lovely and amazing, breathtaking friendo, Debs. So, like, when you use a glass upside down to listen to someone, it's shaped like that, Zen, yeah. And then there's actually tubes, Zen, that come out, and it goes to a mass spectrometer. It's called a GCMS. Gas chromatography mass spectrometry. It is quite a mouthful. Why is it called something that loosey-goosey? It's a great question. That is a great, great question, Zen. Essentially, this machine detects compounds in the air. Normally, when it's done, Zen, you have to go through a very long process to get the sample. So what you would do normally is you would put a sample into acetic acid, and then you take out the sample and you're left with a concentration of acetic acid and a molecule, and that molecule is your volatile. And then you aerosolize the acetic acid inside this machine, and that's what converts the molecule into a wavelength. And so your output is a graph like this. And that graph is how you run it through a software, and you can interpret each of these peaks is some kind of chemical molecule. And the peak corresponds to the amount of that molecule that's in your sample. So you get not only what's there, but the amount that's there. Now, what they did here, not talking hertz, I don't think it hurts anyone. Not for this one, though, Zen. There's no sound in this one. They can't be. This one is just the composition in of the molecule in the air. Like spikes. But this clasping technique, this right here, like a perfect, yes, exactly. So Twitch Addict, there is something. Spikes. There's this part of the wind tunnel. Where was this, in U.S. or Europe? So Gwen, I do not remember the citation of the wind tunnel. I can find it for you, Gwen, in theory. Hold on. Spikes. Oh, Gwen, I wonder if this is even on my computer. I don't think this is on my computer. No, hold on, Gwen. Because the reason I know that experiment so well is because my qualification exam. So you have to take this thing called the qual, which is if you want to be qualified to be in the PhD program, to get your PhD after your first 2 years, you have to take the special exam. And it's different for every school. It's different for every person. For us, we had to write a 10-page R01 grant and then do a 6-hour oral defense of our proposal. And you have to do it on something that you were not actively working on or have ever worked on before. And so mine was plant communication. And I even, I had figures I drew out. I had all the fancy pants things. But it might be on a different computer. I had nerfed some stuff from this laptop next to me, Gwen, because I was like, I'm not going to open this in who knows when. And so my strong suspicion is that it is not on here. It's probably on some random external. I can try to dig it up, Gwen, but the figure in the paper looked just like that wind tunnel. I can't remember what lab did it. The lab that did the sounds is in England. I'll have to look it up, Gwen. Gwen, if you can ping me, I will dig and try to find that paper again for you. Did I publish something? Insanity. I have been published over 25 times. Ranging from the journal Science, PLOS Biology, PLOS Genetics, PNAS, PLOS 1, Biology Letters. There is a lot of publications that I have. As most of those as first author, but a lot as also some as middle author. So there's a fair bit there. Yeah. So I do know the ins and outs of that. So Gwen, I will try to dig that up for you. Just remind me. I think it's some kind of extra. I think it's on an external drive, but it should be pretty straightforward to find it. So this device, Zen and Twitch Addict, as Twitch Addict pointed out, this is a modification of the GCMS, so you don't need to put your sample into a liquid form and then electrify it to get it to aerosolize, to analyze for the machine. Instead, honest to God, there's a bunch of filters in this tube. There's a bunch of additional things added on. But they made this adaptation where you just take this cone and you put it over a sample, and then everything in the air that goes into it is analyzed. Now, this is good and bad, right? Because it's analyzes everything, you're going to get a lot of noise. You're going to get everything that's just in your ambient air. So Twitch Addict, if you walk by these plants as you're trying to detect, and you're wearing some sort of intense perfume, that's going to be analyzed in your mass spectrometer. That is not something that you might be interested in, right? You might not at all care about how that works. Very nice to meet you. I'm European, located in Canada. No, you talk lovely, Insanity. You talk lovely. Oh, Chris! First time chatter. Please ask your question, oh, Chris. Please ask your question. And hello, Optic Nerve. How you doing today, Optic Nerve? Optic Nerve, how are you doing today, my friend? Welcome the heck in. Going to bed really tired. Debs, it's because you've been working like mad. And you also, Debs, you looked at me for like 6 hours the other day. And that, Debs, is very boring. No wonder you're very tired from that. Guys, speaking of, check out our YouTube page. Go subscribe to our YouTube page. Debs has been hard at work. Crushing it. Putting up abridged VODs. She cuts out the intros and the outros, the raids, and just distills it down to the pure science. Big love to the amazing Debs. We love you, Debs. Please sleep well. And have, if we don't see you Sunday, Debs, have a very happy Easter.
Hoochie and the Hoochie Mama.
Gwen. Is it common for TV to give off radiation when it is turned off? Chris, I am not sure. There are, like, maybe, it depends on what kind of radiation you're asking about. You know, if you consider, like, radio waves on, like, older TVs to be radiation, that might be a possibility, but there's nothing like... Any kind of radiation that could damage your cells is not being given off by a television, even the older ones. Like crazy. Well, Debs, listen. Debs. When I'm with my family, Debs, down in Georgia, you know, Easter was a big day. Like, we would, the little ones, when they were younger, would have Easter egg hunts, and then we'd have a big family dinner, and it was a big thing. Here, Lita's mom doesn't really mean anything to her, and so it's just gonna be, you know, we will have some food, but it's just not a huge event. When little Ilona is big enough to understand, then we'll do, like, you know, an Easter egg hunt and all that fun jazz. How many microteslas would be normal for the TV that's turned off? Chris, I am not sure. I'm a biologist, Chris. Unfortunately, I do not understand the technology well enough to be able to answer that question. I apologize. I'd rather tell you that I don't understand versus make something up. Light is radiation too, as we exactly. It's like, because Chris, welcome in, Chris. A radiator is something that radiates. So Twitch Addict, Coffee Rocks, Smikes. They put in these experiments. Let's see. Well, we all have awesome Debs. I will cook so much, Debs, that you won't even have to worry about it. Sleep well, Debs.
Not tethered by earthly limitations.
What does that mean?
Come.
Sleep well, Debs. We love you, Debs. So, Twitch Addict, what you would do is you would have two of these. You'd run two experiments, essentially. One with an injured plant and one with a non-injured plant. Sleep well, Debs! So let's say, again, you just have, like, your little pot inside. And then you'd have your plant in here. And then you're trying to analyze what happens if you injure one and not the other. And then you compare the two. And that would be the two comparisons that you would run, and you'd subtract away the differences. So presumably there's molecules in this particular one that are not in this one. You'd also want a third one, Coffee, Twitch Addict, Smikes, a third analysis, and hook that up to the machine. And that's one of your controls then, is that you probably just have a pot of soil by itself. And so that's one controls in, because this is a very sensitive technology, and it's also going to have, it's going to collect the ambient smell, which Zin, as you might imagine, could have a bunch of molecules in it that are irrelevant to what you're doing. So for both of these, for the non-stress and the stressed, you would subtract away this one. That whole list, you subtract away from your control right there. And then you would compare these two. Yep, exactly, Cliff. Exactly. So you want to subtract away all of that. So you're getting the microbes in the soil that are emitting stuff. You're getting the ambient air components as well. There's a lot there to be had. I was thinking could have the smell of freshly baked bread, but that's not releasing since realize it's not possible in a laboratory. There could be, Zen. Like you could put a baguette underneath, which would actually be kind of interesting, right, Zen? If you, I would love to know what extract of baguette smells like. But I think unless you're baking bread when you're doing these experiments, that wouldn't be something in your control that would be beneficial to you. So you want this control, like the empty one, to be run in the same room at the same time as you're running the experimentals, so that you can subtract it away. Now, what I've seen, Zen, and to me this always rubs me the wrong way, Zen. Oh, insanity, we don't know about the seeds. We do not know about the seeds. So Zen, I've seen papers that publish where they run each of these experiments. So if we do, or conditions, let's say, Zen. Conditions. This is condition 1, where the plant is getting affected, like there's a stress. Condition 2, where there's no stress, but you have a plant there. And then condition 3, which is just the smell control. Zen, I've seen these run on different days, but not like in batches where you have, one of each on different days, because that actually is a great control. Instead, Zen, I've seen where, okay, we're going to run all the controls on this one day, and we're going to run all the experimentals on this other day, and then we're going to run all the plant controls on the 4th day. Why that's bad, Zen, is because what if there are day effects and time of day effects? Like if there's different concentration of humidity in the air that could be affecting the composition of an odor, or as Cliff said, if there's like a different amount of moisture in the air and you're testing your blank one with the soil only, what if the microbes are responding to the air differently because there's a different amount of humidity? Right, so you have to do your controls on this, like everything on the same day. The same, Zen, is true as well for how do you say, Zen? For slides. So for doing immunohistochemistry. Hi, Crystal. Welcome in, Crystal. In immunohistochemistry, Zen, if you do like if you're measuring protein levels between conditions, you'll want to test those protein levels for experimental and control, like run the stain on the same day and batch them together instead of independently, because like there could be different effects on that front as well. Guys, run them all on the same day. The petunias get stuck. I mean, Alex, we say in jest, but there may very well be reactions, right, on different days that are similar, like, they're throwing a little bit of a temper tantrum. And yes, there is electrical signaling. We will talk about electrical signaling. Don't you worry, Smikes. So insanity, you can measure humidity, but humidity impacts experiments. So if you do them on different days, even if you measure the humidity and you say, like, the humidity is different on these days, that does not inherently account for what molecules are given off. So you have to make sure you pay attention and run these experiments on the same day. Just like a little extra bit, as Big Game would say, of information on that front as well. Does that make sense, y'all? I hope that makes sense on all. I know it's pretty dense, but essentially you're able to analyze the smells. Or actually, so coffee, you joke Coffee Rocks, but coffee, we had a collaborator in Ireland who was working on learning and memory. Love you, Smikes. Who was working on learning and memory in fruit flies. And they were doing a different kind of learning and memory behavior than we were doing, but they were proving the same thing, that a gene was involved in long-term memory. And then all of a sudden, Coffee, their experiments stopped working. And they stopped working for 6 months. And they had no idea why it stopped working. They were changing everything. Coffee, they changed their body soap. They changed the wash liquid that they were using, like on their clothes, the detergents. People couldn't come in perfume or deodorant or anything. Do you know what it ended up being, Coffee Rocks? The janitor used a different cleaning product. They changed cleaning products, and that odor threw off the entirety of the experiment. So, a stinky person working on Monday, Wednesday, Friday can 100% affect your experiments in ways that you would have no idea to account for. So, if things are working differently, it might not, if you're wearing too much Prada or Gucci, that is 100% something that can negatively impact the data. If that makes sense. Did they measure room temperature? They measured room temperature for the studies, Cliff. Like it's usually reported, but there are some, Cliff, where I think we talked about this yesterday. They put it's at room temperature, and room temperature means a bunch of different things. Like, right, room temp could mean 18. It can mean 20, it can mean 24, it can mean a bunch of different temperatures. And I'd rather them actually say what room temp means. Hi, Cruxy! Welcome in, Cruxy. On the main screen, we're actually writing out the experimental protocol for how it was demonstrated that odors are utilized in plant communication. Volatile organic compounds, in particular, salicylic acid. Now then, we're also further looking at how other plants communicate as well. There's an additional way of communication that these plants have that is... There's electrical signaling between them, and there's also... there's a wide array of things that they communicate with. But let's go. Smikes was asking about the electric communication. So let's go ahead and talk about the electricity and how they communicate via that. And then we'll jump back into a little bit more about that. First, we need to know how the VOC is detected by the plants. Cliff Alistair McLean is right. I am so sorry. I got excited. Cliff, I've got to look. Thank you so much. Thank you, Neuralicia. Thank you for the raid, madame. Thank you for sharing your community with us. Thank you for doing what you do. That amazing science content. Cliff, there are receptors for salicylic acid expressed in the genome of these animals, or in the plants in particular. And it turns out, Cliff... Oh, Coffee! That's what this is. Coffee Rocks. Your original question, Coffee. I'm so sorry. There are receptors... Hi, Nelf. Welcome in, Nelf. There are receptors for salicylic acid in these, like in the trees and in other plants, and those receptors detect the salicylic acid. And these receptors are the same between the same and different species. So what that means is there could be cross-reaction. There could be cross-reaction between them. So if the molecule that is salicylic acid goes between trees of different species and the same species, the detection mechanism is going to be the same. It's going to be this little receptor that'll hook onto these blue molecules. If you get rid of the receptor, Coffee, a couple of things happen. So one, Coffee Rocks, is that there's actually 3 layers of communication, Coffee. Now stay with me, Coffee. This is absolute madness. This is absolute madness, Coffee Rocks. Let's draw out our little plant. This little plant is inside its little pot. It's very coffee. I'm going all artsy just for you now. We gave it a little bit of soil. Okay, we're looking all kinds of good. We're looking all kinds of good. And then
You can't rush art.
a little bit but gamey. We have leaves on this plant. Coffee. We have little leaves. Now, Coffee Rocks, here's what's insane to me. And this was a beautiful study that was identifying it. It turns out if you were to attack this upper leaf, the molecule salicylic acid is detected in this leaf much faster than what you would normally predict. Hi, Theo! Welcome in, Theo! Meaning that it's not that the salicylic acid is turned up inside this leaf and then spreads within the xylem and the phloem. That's not how it's communicated. Instead, what happens, Coffee, is the salicylic acid...
Where's my drink?
Theo, thank you for the hydrate.
What drink?
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun.
Theo Roberts upstairs.
Dun, 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 dun.
I'm so sorry, Theo.
Dun.
But you get to see Robert. There is fake Robert over here, Theo, or like backup Robert. No, Andrew. Backup Robert's over there. You want backup Robert? You got it, Theo.
Gucci.
Look at his little feetsies! Look at his little feetsies!
Love you, Theo. Theo, we actually have 2 extra Roberts. There's that one, and then Baby Alona has a Robert as well, which is very important to have. One of her, she doesn't yet play with any of her plushies, but she has a Robert, and she has the Triceratops, and she has a bear from Thindall. I'm so sorry, Theo. Well, Theo, they don't have to be. You can turn them off. Sleep well, Theo. Get some good sleep, Theo. Get some good sleep, Theo. We love you, Theo. So, what it turns out happens, Coffee, is that salicylic acid is released. We're talking about plant communication today. Zin has a good point. Don't compare your work against others. Compare your work against your own. See the improvements, cherish the learn you get from improving your failures and mistakes. Yes, exactly. Zintaus knows what's up. Zintaus knows what's up, chat. All right. So, does that make sense? Ezra Pizza, thank you for the follow. Welcome the heck into the colony. Thank y'all for all those follows.
So if you're not following science streams, then you have got to change that. You gotta go follow and you be rearranging your day around the dopest streams ever. There's music and there's art and there's science facts. What else do you need for your hearts?
You have lovely grammar, Zen. So Coffee Rocks, we were asking about the molecule salicylic acid and how plants communicated via smell. So, Coffee Rocks. If salicylic acid was moving in from this cut site through the xylem to the other leaves, it would move much slower than what the data suggests. Salicylic acid is quite a large molecule and doesn't easily pass through cell membranes and throughout the xylem and the phloem of the plant. Instead, what it turns out is that the salicylic acid molecule is volatile and released, and even attaches to and is detected by within the plant itself. So it is a faster way that the plant has to upregulate its own immune responses against a predator threat, which is quite remarkable. Hi, Ratsky! Thank you, Ratsky. Ratsky, I love you, Ratsky. Ratsky thinks that I don't know what's happening. Guys, if you're not checking out our amazing friend Ratsky, go check out the amazing friend Ratsky. 3D printing wizard extraordinaire. And modeler and paintballer as well. Why do we use this for pimples? I have no idea, NMD. I'm, in fact, not a dermatologist, although NMD. NMD 96, we had in Georgia a dermatologist.
Fucking Gucci.
That his name was, this is not doxing because you're not going to be able to find out who he is because I'm not going to give you your first name. Dr. Cohen. And Dr. Cohen had NMD a license plate. You know what the license plate said, NMD? Dr. Skin. Now, NMD, if I were to ask anybody, it might be Dr. Skin. I might ask him about why it's put on pimples. Do I trust all his responses? Probably not. But possibly, maybe, potentially. I'd go check that out. So plant communication with itself through the air. Yes, exactly. So, Cliff, it is faster to communicate within the plant via this odorant than it is to actually send the molecule through the xylem and the phloem. Now, Cliff, the next thing in coffee is, you know what? Let's just be really, really fast here. What? Come on now. Copy paste. There we go. Okay. So now we have multiple ones. Lurking Cleanup, thank you. No doubt. Thank you for the raid, and thank you for sharing your community with us. And thank you for showing your artwork with us as well. Those are beautiful pieces, my friend. Very much appreciate you. So, if it happens within a plant, right, the within plant signaling. Big Amy, no, sir! I love your face, Big Gamey. Big Gamey, I love your face, Big Gamey. You handsome devil, you. So handsome is that Big Gamey chat. Fun fact, goldfish had two eyes. Sometimes. Astronomy show! What's going on? Are we alright? It's just yellow. We're fine.
Whatever.
So, how you doing, Astronomy show? Hello, Bricklane. Welcome on in.
Red alert.
No, now we're panicking. You okay, Astronomy show? How's it going? How's it going?
Stay on target. We're too close. Stay on target.
So,
Shut up, Wesley.
You can imagine, Coffee, that if we now have... I'm going to color the stem of the plant to indicate species. NMD! The 100 BTs, NMD. But actually, the mostest, the toastest, your facest. Didn't make much sense. That was a stretch, NMD. Okay, let me see.
Gucci.
That plant and this plant are, let's say, the same species, Coffee, indicated by the orange. And then we'll make our final plant a different species, indicated by the red, or pink.
Gucci.
I love toast, Hugh. I love you, toast. Made sense to you? Okay, NMD. It's because you and I are in each other's brains. It's fine. So, Coffee, what ends up happening is that there are receptors for salicylic acid in these animals. So, or these plants. No, Jimmy, no. Mr. B! Thank you for the 100 biddies, Mr. B. Jimmy B kicking off a hype train, chat. A hype train. Chat. Thank you for kicking off the hype train. Biddies for kitties. I've been having trouble getting the kitty cats in particular because they're usually around the little one. And right now, I don't know if y'all can hear, but the little one is not in a good mood. Once things settle down, the cats will be coming back more regularly. But everything is like tenuous enough now where I don't. Can you really not hear her, Andrew? It's probably through the double door. I think she must be in her room. Okay. When she comes out of her room, that's when you can hear her. Let me see. Okay, I can go see if we have a cat available. How about? I'll go see if I can grab a cat. Smike's can... Dang it, I know Smike's can still hear. The one thing is... So, I will go see if I can get a cat. We will go back to doing the cats more regularly once things have settled out a little bit more with the wee lassie. Just baby steps, y'all. Baby steps. If we complete a level 1 hype train, we do have stickers to raffle off, and we also have a brand new magnet. A brand new magnet. SciAnts partner magnets that are now available. Only in hype trains. If we complete any level of the choo-choo. Otherwise, let me go see. Let me go find the kitty cat. Let me go find the kitty cat, chat. All right. Hi, Beach Team. This is the lovely Hops. This is the lovely Hops here, who's being all kinds of silly. Oh, come on, Buds. He and I snuggled a fair bit today. What? Come on up, Buds. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. I know. Here's Hops. Hops. Yes, I know. Here's Hops. Hops Ecclesias is here. He's one of our 4 kitty cats. And yeah, he was Little Spoon today. I took a like a 30-minute nap, and I woke up that I was spooning Hops. It was very silly. He also tends not to want to be held always. He wants to be held on his own time. Always the big spoon, never little spoon. Who? Me? No. Barley will big spoon me sometimes. He's a very interesting kitty cat, that Barley. He's a very interesting kitty cat. You never know what you're going to get with Barley. You never know. But he's a sweetie. Noodle does whatever Noodle wants. There is no rhyme or reason with Noodle. Which, again, is okay because Noodle, again, is a bestie and we do what we do. Guys, also go check out the lovely and amazing astronomy show. If you like live astrophotography, go check out Astronomy Show, chat. You'll never be disappointed. Noodle did bite your foot, but on the plus side, Music Girl, even though your foot was bit, you were wearing socks. Right, I could have seen it going much worse if you didn't have socks on. That could have been much worse. Chat. We have 19 seconds on the hype train. Otherwise, let's get back to this finding. So, salicylic acid and other of these volatiles can regulate within a plant. Like this one that we looked at here. Right, we just talked about between the leaves. Thank y'all again. Thank y'all for the hype train. Appreciate you guys. Thank y'all for the hype train. I was not paying her. She literally... There you go. Music Girl, you weren't petting her. She knows what she wants. Coffee rocks. So if orange to orange is between the same species, so how these two communicate, it makes sense, right? If you have the same receptors in these plants, this receptor here detects the salicylic acid that's also here in this plant, right? So all of those are conserved in terms of the receptors, and that's what the salicylic acid will bind to, upregulate genes, and it'll also change chromatin structure. Now, because the salicylic acid is such a conserved molecule, it's also going to be regulated, and the receptors will also be in different species of plants. And so they will also be able to communicate and get information from the original plant. What we don't know, Coffee, is if this is intentional or not. Are these plants eavesdropping? Right? Are they trying to acquire information from neighboring plants? Or is it just an evolutionary byproduct? We do not know, Coffee Rocks. And it would be a very, very difficult thing to test. We do not know at current stage. My cat's back at my mom's would literally attack my feet under my sheet, so I'll take a cat bite with socks. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, Music Girl. Eavesdropping is possible since there's so many fauna. Possibly. You have that clip, Thug Shells. I not be that great, but I love it. Can you tell? So here we go. Go down the rabbit hole. I have this. So, Aospin, could you write that out in the Discord with spaces? Because I guarantee you that I am not spacing it correctly. Because there needs to be correct pauses, and chat moves fast enough where I cannot read. I cannot have the proper spacing for it. So, awesome. Thank you, Aospin. That requires proper Bulent attention and proper Bulent reading, and I do not want to at all not do it correctly. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Aospin, for understanding. All right. So that's volatile communication between plants. Let's jump on the electrical communication, and then we will round out with the sound communication as well. And chat, tomorrow, Lita and I have another one of those events in town. A little pop-up event in town. With merch and microscopes and all the fun things. That should be fun. Not till later in the afternoon. It's a start. We'll be there setting up at 4:30. And we'll probably be there till, depending on the temperature and weather, 8 or 9. Something like that. Yeah. Electrical communication and counting.
I'm a neuroscientist, and I'm the co-founder of Backyard Brains. And our mission is to train the next generation of neuroscientists by taking graduate-level neuroscience research equipment and making it available for kids in middle schools and high schools. And so when we go into the classroom, one way to get them thinking about the brain, which is very complex, is to ask them a very simple question about neuroscience, and that is, what has a brain? And we ask that, students will instantly tell you that their cat or dog has a brain, and most will say that a mouse or even a small insect has a brain, but almost nobody says that a plant or a tree or a shrub has a brain.
Did we talk about what today, Smikes? Electrical signaling between plants? I don't think so. But you asked about it earlier in the stream today.
And so when you push, because this could actually help describe a little bit how the brain actually functions. So you push and say, well, what is it that makes living things have brains?
Oh, college level equipment goes, yes, we did, I think, talk about it, maybe. It's been a day. It's been a long day, Spikes.
Versus not. And often they'll come back with the classification that things that move tend to have brains. And that's absolutely correct. I mean, our nervous system evolved because it is electrical. It's fast. So we can quickly respond to stimuli in the world and move if we need to. But you can go back and push back on the students. You say, well, you say that plants don't have brains, but plants do move.
Hi, Get Aloha. Welcome on in. How are you doing today?
Anyone who's grown a plant has noticed that the plant will move and face the sun. But they'll say, but that's a slow movement, that doesn't count. That could be a chemical process. But what about fast-moving plants? Now, in 1760, Arthur Dobbs, the royal governor of North Carolina, made a pretty fascinating discovery. In the swamps behind his house, he found a plant that would spring shut every time a bug would fall in between it. And he called this plant the fly trap. And within a decade, it made its way over to Europe, where eventually the great Charles Darwin got to study this plant, and this plant absolutely blew him away. He called it the most wonderful plant in the world. This is a plant that was an evolutionary wonder. This is a plant that moves quickly, which is rare.
So actually, what I really like about this video is it is posing questions to us that I don't think we regularly think about in terms of what is intelligence in... You know, we've talked about intelligence in animals, but when it comes to plants, it feels like a totally different ballgame. And is what the plants do in terms of communication that we've talked about as flavor of intelligence? It's hard to say.
It's a plant that's carnivorous, which is also rare. This is the same plant, but I'm here today to tell you that's not even the coolest thing about this plant. The coolest thing is that the plant can count. So in order to show that, we have to get some vocabulary out of the way. So I'm going to do what we do in the classroom with students. We're going to do an experiment on electrophysiology, which is the recording of the body's electrical signals, either coming from neurons or from muscles. And I'm putting some electrodes here on my wrists, and as I hook them up, we're going to be able to see a signal on the screen here. And this signal may be familiar to you. It's called the EKG, or the electrocardiogram. And this is coming from neurons in my heart that are firing what's called action potentials. Potential meaning voltage, and action meaning it moves quickly up and down.
Yep, they do this with tomato plants, Zen. I think the same thing has been shown in tobacco plants as well, Zen.
Which causes my heart to fire, which then causes the signal that you see here. And so I want you to remember the shape of what we'll be looking at right here, because this is going to be important. So this is a way that the brain encodes information in the form of an action potential. So now, let's turn to some plants. So I'm going to first introduce you to the mimosa, not the drink, but the Mimosa pudica. And this is a plant that's found in Central America and South America, and it has behaviors. And the first behavior I'm going to show you is if I touch the leaves here, you get to see that the leaves tend to curl up.
Which is really cool, right? That's that fast response that we're talking about. Similar to the Venus flytrap coffee. If chemicals plants grow to some plants know how to process food through photosynthesis, I really not think it planned. It's just building the best way to survive. What do you mean, Aosfin? What's the question? A mimosa is actually a plant. I don't think it, though, at Music Girl, it has anything to do with the beverage item. Surviving that is kind of intelligent. So, Aosfin, you could argue, though, that reactive behaviors in not just plants and animals are the same thing. So if you have a reactive behavior, like a genetic reaction to something, like if you're exposed to X, your genes change as Y, that would be also arguable as if that's not really thinking, but rather another response as well. So it's not with going with the plant references, but it's getting a little bit into the weeds of, like, you can define it like that, but if that is not intelligence, or it is, how does that same application apply to all the other phenomena that we observe in nature? So thought.
And then the second behavior is, if I tap the leaf, the entire branch seems to fall down. So why does it do that? It's not really known to science. One of the reasons why could be that it scares away insects, or it looks less appealing to herbivores. But how does it do that? Now that's interesting. We can do an experiment to find out. So what we're going to do now is just like...
One is not tethered by earthly limitations.
What does that mean?
Come.
Sleep well, Skip the bell! Sleep well, Skip, you naughty, naughty devil, you. Sleep well, Skip. Sleep well.
I recorded the electrical potential from my body. We're going to record the electrical potential from this plant right here, this mimosa. And so what we're going to do is I've got a wire wrapped around the stem, and I've got the ground electrode where? In the ground. It's an electrical engineering joke. All right. So all right. So I'm going to go ahead and tap the leaf here, and I want you to look at the electrical recording that we're going to see inside the plant. Whoa, it's so big. I got to scale it down. All right. So what is that? That is an action potential that's happening inside the plant. Why was it happening? Because it wanted to move, right? And so when I hit the touch receptors, it sent a voltage all the way down to the end of the stem, which caused it to move. And now in our arms, we would move our muscles, but in the plant doesn't have muscles. What it has are water inside the cells, and when the voltage hits it, it opens up, releases the water, changes the shape of the cells, and the leaf falls.
Quite remarkable, right? Our teacher had a mimosa in school growing up, dangerous to the plant, with a bunch of 4th graders. Oh, coffee. I am pretty certain that I had a teacher that had a Venus flytrap, and it was taken out just because kids would be touching it. And I think the actual body of the plant that eats the insect can only close like 2 or 3 times before it falls off and dies, because the amount of energy it takes to close and open, which is gnarly on its own.
Okay, so here we see an action potential encoding information to move, all right? But can it do more? So let's go to find out. We're going to go to our good friend, the Venus flytrap here, and we're going to take a look at what happens inside the leaf when a fly lands on here. So
I believe it is a weed optic, yeah. I'd be like, I'll quit it out. Indeed, Pimp Cat. How you doing, Pimp Cat?
I'm going to pretend to be a fly right now. And now here's my Venus flytrap. And inside the leaf, you're going to notice that there are 3 little hairs here, and those are trigger hairs. And so when a fly lands, I'm going to touch one of the hairs right now. Ready? 1, 2, 3. What do we get? We get a beautiful action potential.
And what's cool, Coffee, the reason that a Venus flytrap knows to close is that you only have one single action potential, and then it will even out. Because it's so energetically costly to close the plant, they'll actually leave. They won't close right away. You have to touch a couple of times, like the bug is exploring on the inside, and that's what triggers them to close, because they have such a limited number of closures that they can do that you want to make sure that you have enough, like, it wasn't an accident, essentially.
However, the flytrap doesn't close. And to understand why that is, we need to know a little bit more about the behavior of the flytrap. Number 1.
Be careful, Music Girl, because kids like to poke these, and they can die very rapidly. Also, Music Girl, hilariously enough, so when we were working in a fly lab, a fruit fly lab, we had Venus flytraps, because you would assume that there would be a bunch of fruit flies that the Venus flytraps would eat, right? And that would go really beautifully. Turns out, Music Girl, that they did not survive well because the fruit flies just tended not to go over to them. Like, it wasn't in a confined enough space, and the density of flies wasn't high enough. But we thought, surely, and don't call me Shirley, we'd have enough fruit flies to feed the plants. But you'd actually have to manually put the fruit fly onto the plant to have it be eaten. Hello, Carlos!
1 is that it takes a long time to open the traps back up, about 24 to 48 hours if there's no fly inside of it. And so it takes a lot of energy. And number 2, it doesn't need to eat that many flies throughout the year. It only needs to eat a handful. It gets most of its energy from the sun. It's just trying to replace some nutrients in the ground with the flies. And the third thing is, it only opens, then closes the traps a handful of times until that trap dies. So therefore, it wants to make really darn sure that there's a meal inside of it before the fly trap snaps shut. So how does it do that? It counts the number of seconds between successive touching of those hairs. And so the idea is that there's a high probability if there's a...
Coffee, you're not wrong. There is the possibility that there is social learning occurring there as well. See, my kids fear me, so I just say, Touch and I will pull out the big one. Oh my god. Music Girl, you're breathtaking, man. You're absolutely breathtaking.
There's a fly inside of there that they're going to be quick together. And so when it gets the first action potential, it starts counting 1, 2, and if it gets to 20 and it doesn't fire again, then it's not going to close. But if it does it within there, then the fly trap will close. So we're going to go back now. I'm going to touch the Venus flytrap again. I've been talking for more than 20 seconds. So we can see what happens when I touch the hair a second time. So what do we get? We get a second action potential, but again, the leaf doesn't close. So now if I go back in there, and then if I'm a fly moving around, I'm going to be touching the leaf a few times. I'm going to go and brush it a few times. and immediately the fly trap closes. So here we're seeing the fly.
He is Smikes. He's trying to signify that yes, there is an unappreciated complexity to this animal.
Fly trap actually doing a computation. It's determining if there's a fly inside the trap, and then it closes. So let's go back to our original question. Do plants have brains? Well, the answer is no. There's no brains in here. There's not a, no axons, no neurons. It doesn't get depressed. It doesn't want to know what the Tiger score is. It doesn't have self-actualization problems. But what it does have is something that's very similar to us, which is the ability to communicate using electricity.
They are not animals. They are, so animals are kingdom Animalia. Plants are kingdom Plantae. So they're totally different branches on the tree of life. But there are similarities.
It just uses slightly different ions than we do, but it's actually doing the same thing. So just to show you the ubiquitous nature of these action potentials, we saw it in the Venus flytrap. We've seen an action potential in the mimosa. We've even seen an action potential in a human. Now, this is the euro of the brain. It's the way that all information is passed. And so what we can do is we can use those action potentials to pass information between species of plants. And so this is our interspecies plant-to-plant communicator. And what we've done...
Lady Lara Croft knows. Thank you, Lady Lara Croft. Thank you, Lady Lara Croft. So this is then communication, Smokes, between plants through electric currents. Now he's hooked up the two plants to different currents, and now you're going to see can the electric current of one communicate to another. I know, Smikes, and that's why you're not a jerk. You're breathtaking, sir. If you have a commentary again about how you're not cool and you're not hip and you're not Hampton and you're not amazing, we will nerf all those comments. In fact, we'll nerf them so hard that Andrew and I will get in the car after we go to the Cincinnati Zoo and have like a lovely beverage item and play with the rhino and have a hamburger and frolic in the fields with the flamingos. We will get in the car and we will drive to your place and we will tell you how you're breathtaking, and we will not take it laying down, and then Smikes will be very, very tired. We'll be very, very tired, so then we will in fact lay down. We will in fact then lay down on your floor and take a nap. But then afterwards, Smikes will take you to have another beverage item. See, Andrew, we're gonna actually, Andrew, we probably could do it. I would suggest that we don't, because it's so late. But we could do the thing, Andrew. If it was an emergency, we could meet up and then just like convince Smikes to knock it off that he's breathtaking. Please, Andrew, I want to take you to the zoo. That would be so much fun.
Done. We've created a brand new experiment where we're going to record the action potential from a Venus flytrap, and we're going to send it into the sensitive mimosa.
Yeah, NMD, of course. NMD, it'll be a mod intervention. We'll also pick up BitGamey. That might be a little bit more out of the way, but it's fine, because, it's fine. Well, Music Girl and you are roughly in the same area. That should be an easy pickup. BitGamey will be a little bit harder, but we'll grab BitGamey as well. Maybe we'll even grab Minigaming, if we really want. We'll definitely get Cheeto.
So I want you to recall what happens when we touch the leaves of the mimosa. It has touch receptors that are sending that information back down in the form of an action potential. And so what would happen if we took the action potential from the Venus flytrap and sent it into all the stems of the mimosa? We should be able to create the behavior of the mimosas without actually touching it ourselves. And so if you allow me, I'm going to go ahead and trigger this mimosa right now by touching on the hairs of the Venus flytrap. So we're going to send information about touch from one plant to another.
That is remarkable, right? So they hooked up the electrodes from the Venus flytrap to the mimosa, and by touching the Venus flytrap, the whole mimosa plant reacts now. So it is through electrical communication that they're able to do that.
Gucci.
That is so Gucci. Now, it does beg the question of how often something like this can happen in nature, if they need to interact physically, or if there are also, because we've also looked at recent papers where there's electrical fields in the air, depending on how much moisture is in the air. It's probably a combination of multiple things that it's used. Yeah, coffee. Rapid fire. And again, through electrical signaling, and it's going through the entire plant. Not just like, it's not like a tiered system where it's like the lowest one closes and the next one. Let's actually watch it again. Hey, Goethe!
Pairs of the Venus flytraps that we're going to send information about touch from one plant to another. So there you see it. So,
that's pretty remarkable, right? So again, we've now talked about volatile communication between plants. We've talked about electrical communication between plants. Before we get to the actual paper talking about sound, there is this interesting question before we for Smikes, because Smikes asks about the braininess, if you will, of plants. And I think this might be a good one to chat about is, okay, do plants have cognition in any way? And then we'll jump to the sound. Yes.
In the 1960s, at the height of the Cold War, CIA interrogator Cleve Baxter hooked his polygraph machine up to a houseplant for...
Another reason why I like these videos is this historical context. Can you imagine a CIA agent at the height of the Cold War hooking up a polygraph test to a houseplant? Just for funsies. It's beautiful chaos because it's involving the CIA, but it's also my favorite kind of experiment where it's, let's do something cool because it's interesting. Right? Like, I have this random device. Let me see what I can do with it.
Over the course of his experiments, Baxter observed a change in electrical resistance when the plants were harmed or threatened with harm. This led to the idea that plants possess sentience, that they might even have ESP, extrasensory perception. So, is there any truth to that notion? No. Plants cannot see you, they can't hear you, and they most definitely can't read your mind. But the senses they do have are even more interesting. Plants are literally rooted in one place. They can't run away from danger or walk over the sunnier side of the garden. They have to adapt to what nature gives them. So they've developed special ways of sensing the world and even communicating with each other. The first thing every plant figures out is which way's up and which is down. It's called proprioception, the ability to sense position in space, and we do it too. So how do plants know the difference? Light is an obvious guess, but even seeds that germinate in the dark can aim their shoots and roots correctly. Centuries ago, botanists noticed that an upside-down seedling would always reorient its parts, and that plants grown on a spinning wheel would point their roots in the direction of centrifugal force.
Any guesses to what's it going for? Was this regarding biological chemical warfare for the CIA agent? I think the CIA agent was just being loosey-goosey. I mean, coffee, there may very well have been subtext to it, but I like to imagine it was just something, something a little bit silly on that front. The more we learn, yes, and NELF, those are my favorite kinds of experiments, where it comes up with 10 more questions. I wonder if the plants in the carbonated series did. Yeah, Gwen, I'm not sure. Like, when in plant evolutionary history did modern day plant features evolve, right? Lady told me I needed to talk to my African violet. Actually, Lady Lara Croft, I don't know how true this is, okay? But Lady Lara Croft in the TV show Columbo, I rewatched an episode not too long ago. That had African violets. It was a botanist that committed the murder, and he also said in that episode of Columbo to how to take care of an African violet, to talk to them. So, Zin, this episode starts with the spoilers, sir. I didn't tell you how it was discovered that he's the killer. Zin, you know this, Zin's house. Come on now, Zin. Come on, Zin!
It was clear that they were sensing gravity. was none other than Charles Darwin who showed that the gravity sensing cells lived in the tip of the root. Cut them off and the plant...
So again, plants are detecting up and down, not with light in the direction of growth, but rather via gravity. Gwendolyn, listen. Gwen, have I told you the cinematic masterpiece about The Mummy and the Mummy Returns, starring Brendan Fraser, Art of Ozzy, and Rich Weisz? I have not, Gwen, because we might watch it. We might watch it, Gwen, for Discord movie night. And it would be I would be a monster to spoil the near 20-year-old movie. No, over 20-year-old movie.
Just one more thing.
Yes. Plans have difficult... Yes, so Coffee, there are... I can look up some videos, and that might be a deep dive we'll have to jump into at some point, but there are studies at zero gravity in space on flies, on plants, on ants even, and looking at like how their growth spurt changes. So that's something that we definitely will talk about. Speaking of talking about, folks, if you like talk show streams and food and drink streams and occasional IRL travel, go check out the lovely and amazing Rusty Rhymes. Rusty, how are you doing today? We're talking about a new study that came out on plant communication. Welcome the heck in, Rusty. Cedric Diggory, so do you want NMD... an ant lying on the ground with another one screaming, "My boy"? That was a deep cut HP reference, folks. NMD is right now rolling her eyes so hard. There it is. There it is. Yes. I am so sorry, y'all. I am so sorry. There's a couple of thoughts.
Eat 'em, baby!
No, NMD, don't worry. I will not make that. Even though it's been memified. It's been memified. I will not. Don't worry. It's fine. Hi, Nerduino! Professor Nerduino, I may have upset one of our breathtaking moderators by suggesting that Cedric Diggory Antonio will just be another Antonio saying "my boy." And yes, Buttspot unfortunately is banned, Andrew. Not here, but just across Twitch. I think it was Smikes who reported Buttspot. Y'all, if you're not checking out the amazing Nerduino, I think... There we go. NASA in his house. Gwen, that was made for you, Gwen, that command. Because we know how much you like to say that. We need to specify it a little bit more, Nerduino. But ever since Gwen started saying that, it's just something that like now doesn't leave my brain. And so it's always in the his house. But guys, make sure to check out Nerduino Monday. Monday, we're probably going to be raiding over to Nerduino. And I will be... Nerduino will be interviewing me. Sneaky questions about things about science and Twitch. Wow, 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 yippee, yo, yippee, Snoop Dogg in his house. And all the things. So that'll be on Monday, folks. Must have been my last stream because Buttspot was going insane. Maybe. Monday is a fun day. Monday's only a fun day in the stream universe, Zen. But regularly not so much, Zen. I don't tend to much care for Mondays in Taos. I don't tend to much care for Mondays. But NMD, yes, if you do a Cedric Diggory, I do need actual guidance on what you want a Cedric Diggory Antonio to do, because the only thing I can think of is my boy!
Doesn't know which way is down. Cells in the root tip actually contain tiny little bead-like particles. Wherever gravity pulls them, that tells the root which way to grow. Cells in the shoot...
So roots have directionality. God, NMD. Fine. NMD. The ant looks up and winks afterwards. So we use a sound clip of my boy! And then Antonio looks up and goes... And then lays back down. NMT is like, oh my god, Valentis. This is the problem that I know. I shouldn't know the universe.
Shoot contain those same gravity sensing particles, but there they signal the plant to grow away from gravity. We've all seen plants bend towards light. When we walk or drive to get food, plants grow toward it. It's called phototropism. It was Darwin again who tested plants bending to the light. If the tip of a seedling was cut off, the plant didn't change direction. Cells in the growth tip sense light and tell the rest of the plant how to grow in response. And plants can also measure how much light they get, or photoperiodism, which is how they keep track of the seasons. The last light a plant sees at night is in the far red of the spectrum. Now, this longer wavelength light inactivates a light-sensing molecule inside the plant that isn't reactivated until the next morning, when it's hit by light that's a little more orange. Well, this phytochrome cycle measures how much darkness there is. When this internal clock signals that the days are getting longer, plants know that it's spring, and longer nights mean autumn is on the way. Plants don't have noses, but they can detect chemical signals in the air, which isn't that different from what we do when we smell. Ancient Egyptians would ripen their figs by cutting open a few in every bunch. Farmers in Florida used kerosene lamps to ripen oranges, and to soften an unripe peach or an avocado, we put it in a paper bag with a ripe banana. But what do all these tricks have in common? Ethylene gas, plants' ripening hormone. It's nice for us at the grocery store, but ethylene helps plants by synchronizing ripening to draw in hungry seed-dispersing animals. And it's also one of the signals that tells leaves their job is done for the year. This weird plant basically forgot how to do photosynthesis, but it gets by stealing food from its neighbors. It even has a preference for which plants it steals from. The tip of a growing seedling sniffs the air, seeking the smell.
This parasitic plant actually will bore into the xylem and the phloem of a neighboring plant and siphon off its nutrients. Coffee, I think it's just the inverse of these other ones. I think it's just the inverse, so they're just offset on what, like, when their expression pattern of the blue, like those key genes is turned on. There's usually these seasonal, like, there's circadian rhythm genes for the day, but there's also circadian rhythm ones in the plant that are year-round. And so it's depending on when there's peak amount of gene expression of certain components, that's when they know it's time to bloom. And so all of that is just offset in ones that bloom during the winter. Same thing for like southern hemisphere ones too, where it's reversed of like when the timing is of winter and summer. Same kind of principle of how that is governed. Nerduino's world is upside down. Sometimes.
Smell of its favorite victim, a tomato plant, and ignoring all the others. When it finds a leaf, it even knows to aim down for the stem so it can drink the good stuff. Some plants use airmail to warn each other of danger. When hungry caterpillars show up, injured leaves release volatile chemicals.
This is what we were just talking about with the volatile compounds being released.
And other leaves sniff out those signals and start making toxic compounds, so they're less appetizing. Other plants, those airborne alarms tell the plant to pump out tasty nectar, which attracts beetle-eating insects. Nearby plants can even eavesdrop on these signals, toughening up their defenses before they get attacked. Our sense of touch is really several senses, each detected by specific receptors on specific types of nerves, and those signals are eventually processed by the brain. Plants can sense those same things, they just do it their own way. A vine can sense when it's touching an object and signal special cells to change shape and coil around like a spring. That sense of touch is incredibly sensitive. The weight of a single thread brushed along a cucumber vine is enough to start it winding. If you run your finger along the leaves of this plant, they'll fold up. Touch sends an electrical signal shooting along the leaf, activating tiny hydraulic pumps at the base of the leaflet.
See, we've talked about all of these individually, and I think it's like a nice summary video pulling together all the ways that we know plants can communicate. Which M. Night Shyamalan movie, Lady Lara Croft? I enjoyed The Sixth Sense, and then I don't think I enjoyed another M. Night Shyamalan movie after that. It just... This horror ones get me because I get scared of everything. And then, The Avatar one was destruction. Yeah. Plants are cool. The one that smells like rotting flesh or blooms like 100. The rotting flesh one, oh, Gwen, why the word has escaped me. The word has totally escaped me, Gwen, on that one. That plant, that smelly one, I don't remember what it's called. I think there's some are 10 years on that one. And then I imagine the lumberjacks. Is it just the corpse plant? Might just be the one that I know there's other components as well. But the lumberjacks, yeah, I imagine, Zin, if you were in the forest as it's being cut by lumberjacks, the smell, as well as the sounds, too, would be very crazy. Happening, I think, okay, gotcha. I don't think I've seen it. Again, Avatar, I saw. NMD Blast! Sleep well!
By earthly limitations.
What does that mean?
Come.
Sleep well, NMD 96, you breathtaking soul. Love you, NMD.
Making the leaf go limp. Thanks to this shy habit, we call it the sensitive plant. Next time that you stop to look and smell the flowers, take a moment to consider that they might be doing the same thing. Stay curious. Oh, and that thing you heard about plants and classical music? Sorry, they're deaf.
Same with the African violets. Hi, call me Kixie. Welcome in, Kixie. Google says Amorphous phallus tedium is the corpse plant. Okay. It was probably just corpse plant that I was misremembering. There was some other phrase, Kixie, that I felt like, because we had one at Dartmouth that bloomed. It bloomed once while we were there, and since then it bloomed another one. It's bloomed again, so I think it's like a 10-year thing. Remote server 503. Gwen 503. They can feel vibrations in the air, yes, but that, I guess. So Smikes, I think it's not the regular vibrations, at least the ones that have been researched, is a particular pitch, a particular wavelength of sound that they need to detect. So our frequencies, as far as we're aware, do not have effects on the plants versus the frequencies that they have, that we've played, do have effects. So I guess, better phrased, deaf to your sound, or deaf to our sounds versus not deaf to each other, if that makes sense. 503 indeed, Gwendolyn P. Alright. Final bit of info.
We're here in the forest garden.
Let's learn about the sounds of these plants.
Today, doing a really nifty installation and conversation about plants. And what we're doing is we're working with people from across the university. So we're working with Raul Romero from the School of Art, and he is a sound sculptor, and he found a device called a MIDI sprout. And what the MIDI sprout does is you can put it on the leaves of plants, and it'll pick up on some of the signals that are running through the leaves, and then the device translates them to sound.
So this is just a Blint thought this was really cool of an art installation, because we've talked a lot about how art and science are two sides of the same coin. And this is an art installation at Yale. I imagine I don't know if they bring this up every year and do it every year, but it was a really, really cool like living art piece. And I'm like, why is that?
Then we also started working with Christopher Ross Ewert from the School of Drama, who's a sound designer, and so he has kind of plugged that information into a bunch of speakers that we have set out all over the forest garden, and we've attached it to a few plants. So we're listening to some bluebells and to some dandelions, and we're actually getting to hear in real time what some of the activity inside of the plant might sound like.
Awesome. Thank you, Lady Lara Croft. I cannot watch it because it is a thriller / scary. What kind of filters? So, Smikes, it says in the paper, I will post the paper on the Discord, and it has the method section like as to what auditory, like what audio things they were utilizing. It's a little bit above my head, but we should. I'll definitely post it, and maybe you'll be able to better. There is a lot of processing. Like when these people are putting on their ears, there's a lot of processing that is happening live there.
If translated into a language that humans could really sort of understand, the language of music. Then we're really fortunate to have Ache, who works with plant physiology and is studying the impacts of sound on plant photosynthesis and plant function, here to talk to us about what might be going on inside the plants, why we're hearing what we're hearing, what are some of the really interesting sort of frontiers in science that are helping us to understand how crucial sound is as a life force, and what an important role it plays.
This is at Yale, Zen. That is in Connecticut. It's in Connecticut.
In the function of everything sort of around us. And we're also really lucky to have Emma Greenbaum here, who is sort of putting this all in the context of climate resilience and climate change, and what does this mean for our understanding of how we are going to address some of the major issues of our day, and how we're really going to work with what the science is giving us, and how complex we know the world to be, and how beautiful we know the world to be.
How do we know it's coincidence and doesn't have any bearing on anything? So, Smikes, they did have an experiment in the paper that we were talking about today. Let me actually pull up the figure. Because there they played back the sounds to non-stress plants, and those plants reacted with sound as well. And so there is an effect, it seems. Now, one thing they haven't proven to me, Smikes, is what genetic changes accompany that sound playing. They haven't done any RNA sequencing or ChIP-seq to look at how the transcriptome is changing, and looking at how the chromatin structure is changing. So those would be the additional things. And once you figure out what genetic changes are happening, then we can talk about genetic modification. But they are responding to the sound. So if it was just a random byproduct, I would imagine that there would be no reason to respond if it didn't matter. Does that make sense, Mikes? The lovely Coffee Rock says, it would be interesting to find out what different sounds are produced with different stressors, and if different species produce the same sounds to pass along the information to other plants. So, Coffee, they did test a similar question in this study. They did they tested tomato plants and tobacco plants. And they did do the switch between, so they played the tomato sounds to tobacco plants and vice versa, and they did respond in terms of giving back sound, but we don't yet know if what effect that sound has. So what are the genetic changes of it? So that, I think, would be the next paper, Coffee. It's okay, you've proven that there is a reaction via sound reaction by playing them the cues between species and within species. But what's happening in terms of the genetics? Are there any transcriptome changes, and then are there any chromatin changes? Because that has been proven for smell. Is it also the same for auditory? And that we don't currently know, but that would be a really, really, really cool question to ask. I think that would be like the next thing that I'd want to ask.
First time I heard a plant speak, I guess, I was in Raul's art studio. He has a couple of potted plants there that he had been messing around with to kind of see how this device might work, and I heard the plant, and it was just like, oh my god, like, right? Like, you know these things are alive, and you know that they're more complex than they seem at first glance, but then when you actually hear it, it's just like, it's so life-affirming, and it's so beautiful. And it was so cool to hear how the plant could interact kind of with me in a way. And, you know, when we watered the plant, it made different sounds, or when I touched the plant, it made different sounds. And whether or not I know exactly what that means or exactly what's going on, it's just cool to think about that there are those interactions happening, and it's kind of an invitation to explore some of the magic that's really happening in there, and to dig into the science and to the art of, I guess, life.
So I just thought that was a cool merger of the science and the art. There is a second. We'll watch this additional video, and then we'll go back to the paper to round out the evening, folks. Let's continue on.
Or not, plants can scream. New research from Tel Aviv.
So plants can scream, but remember what we talked about. Even this is the difference between the popular media reporting versus the scientists reporting. The scientists have said that this is not screaming because they can't yet prove that there's intention, and they define a scream as a transmission of information with intention. And there's no evidence yet that there is an intention happening here. I think maybe if you look at the transcriptome and show there are genetic changes, maybe coffee, like we talked about within the plant via the leaves, right? Like the salicylic acid molecule going from the upper leaf to the lower leaf. If there's something like that within a plant and between plants, maybe there is some reactive intention there. But we are still a ways away from proving that.
Believe it or not, plants can scream. New research from Tel Aviv University has found that plants make noise when stressed. For the study, scientists focused on tomato and tobacco plants. They placed plants into 3 groups. These were drought-stressed plants, plants cut at the stem, and control plants. These were placed in an acoustic box for an hour. Each plant was recorded with 2 microphones placed 10 centimeters away. On average, drought-stressed tomato plants emitted roughly 35 ultrasonic sounds per hour, while tobacco plants produced 11 per hour. Cut tomato plants created roughly 25 sounds per hour, while tobacco plants generated 15. The study found that all control plants produced, on average, less than 1 sound per hour. The scientists explained in the study that these sounds could potentially be heard by other organisms up to several meters away. The tomato plants were also placed in a greenhouse setting to test whether or not sounds emitted by plants would be identified outdoors. The results matched researchers' findings from the plants in the acoustic box in that plants produce more sounds as they become dehydrated. Machine learning classifiers were...
So they tested it in the greenhouse setting as well as in the box setting, because if the hypothesis is they did it in the box setting only because there's some flavor of sound, like that's happening only because they're isolated or something. But if they're much more set in the setting, then we could, it's the next best thing to being outdoors, I suppose. A mandrake root to really hear the scream? Maybe, Zen. But if we're hitting a mandrake, you make sure to wear those earmuffs, okay? Zen, I want you to wear the earmuffs because I don't want you to pass out like little Neville, as it were.
Able to distinguish distinct noises produced by the different plants in both the acoustic box and the greenhouse setting. Researchers suggested that in the future, farmers may be able to use this type of technology to listen out for drought-stressed crops to better assess their crops.
And that was a really cool discussion point that the authors had. Like maybe if you had almost like early earthquake detection technology, like you're listening to the acoustics of the earth, right, and the tectonic plates, and you could be like, oh, there's activity, now we need to prep. But maybe there is a better way. So Nerduino, think about like this, Nerduino. There is different plants and they have different optimal soil moisture concentrations. Right, so a soil moisture meter just tells you how much is maybe there, but maybe you don't know the optimal. Maybe you have different strains of plants that are there, and the best way to get that would be these kinds of acoustics. And maybe it's predictive. Maybe it's better tuned than a different kind of measure. As a possibility, Nerduino. They might also just be suggesting this to justify the funding. I think the next thing will honestly be the genetics behind it. Is that what is the genetics changes between these sounds? That, I think, is really the next big step here. Okay, so back to the paper chat. Again, this is the summary. So this is a graphical abstract. I really, really like graphical abstracts. What that means is there's the abstract, which is a written short form mini paragraph that tells you what the paper is about. There is then a graphical option, which just draws out essentially what the researchers did and what the findings were. And they do quite a nice job with it of demonstrating that they did, the lack of water stress, the cutting stress and the no stress, listened to the sounds, played them back and identified what the sounds were, and found that there are in fact effects. Now, they didn't prove what the sounds were coming from. Again, there was the hypothesis that they're bubbles. That is the effects of it bursting. Again, Cliff pointed out that could be a metabolomics question, but that's not really proven yet. They haven't proven what the genetic and chromatin changes are as a function of these sounds, which has to be the next step, given what we know about sound and the mycelial network affecting plants and their genetic setup. Inside Science said 90% of people only ever read the abstract and conclusions. Nerduino, I would argue 90% only read the abstract and gain conclusions of the paper from the abstract and not the actual conclusions paragraph. So you are giving far more credit, Nerduino, than I would say most people, because they're very naughty. This could have been coffee. Ask away, Coffee Rocks. Nerduino, you're always in the top 10. Listen, Nerduino, you're in the top 1% of all things. Science, handsome, fatherhood. Playing these sounds back at their actual frequency would be difficult. Wouldn't the next step be trying to trick the plants with sound? Well, so Smikes, they have played back the sound to the plants, and what that ended up happening was they then recorded sounds emitted from those plants as well. So there seems to be a crosstalk from sound. Hello, and pigs fry. So now when I mow with my earmuffs on, what should I karaoke? Bye, bye, bye. It's a little morbid as you're mowing grass, but at the same time, it's upbeat for you. So you'll feel good about mowing down whole communities of plants. But it's also sending a strong message. You know? That might be the one. What is the frequency? Oh, Smikes, let me see. Smikes, I do not remember what the frequency is. But I will post a paper. Let's see. Results, star methods. The amplitude, that's not because it's normalized data. The ultrasonic range is between 20 and 150. 61.61 decibels for dry plants for tomatoes and 65 for tobacco. How is that, Smikes? We got it, Smikes! We got it, Smikes. So the plants respond to other plants screaming by screaming themselves. Yes, Cliff. Although it is, per this study, not to the same number. So it is not, the frequency is 35, pulses of the stressed tomato plant, but the one that's communicated to, there's far less of it. But it's more than baseline communication. That's unamplified. I believe so, Nerduino. I think this is the raw number here. And then the sound frequencies. That's the mean frequency. Cut plants is 65 and 63, respectively. SPL stand for... Let's see if they define it. They don't define it, Nerduino, in their paper. Yep, they don't define it, Nerduino. Sound pressure level is what Smike says. It should, in theory, be that, but it drives me up the wall when it is not defined, because I have no idea what they actually want their acronym to be. Right? It could be something very plant-specific. It could be something university-specific. It could be a lab-specific thing. Even if it's something very easy, like qPCR, which is quantitative polymerase chain reaction. Easy, I mean, in the sense that it is something that's always in molecular biology papers. I will always write it out and then put it in parentheses at the first time I mention it, and then afterwards I'll use the acronym. But every single time I'll put it in, or PBS, which is a standardized buffer solution. It's in every methods paper with insects. They always use it. They never define it. I will always go in and freaking define it. And if I've had professors who change it back, like, you don't need to define this. I'm like, no, we're defining this. I'm not going to be that guy. I am not going to be that guy who doesn't define their acronyms. Because it just drives me up the wall. Referee should have absolutely called it out. The reviewers, unfortunately, Smikes, half the time there is some flavor of editing, and other times there's just nothing. Sound pressure level. From Gwen and Smikes. Thank y'all. It's a good guess. Gwen, but you do see my upsetness, Gwen, that maybe they don't want that to happen, Gwen. Maybe they think it's funny without it being correct. Get aloha! Thank you for the 100 biddies for Screaming Plants! Gwen, that was a little rage. That was a little rage, Gwen. It's okay, Gwen. It's a little rage, Gwendolyn P. So, chat. That is the first paper. Again, there's not a ton in terms of molecular data in this. But I think what they've done is pretty convincing. Like, they do look at the sounds. We should be able to hear this. Let me look at... So this is downsampled an MP3 Smikes. This is downsampled to the audible range. So Smikes, even here they're saying that it's not audible with this. And then the sound, did it download? Oh, it nerfed me out of my support. That's hilarious. I was logged in on this page, and then the next page where it opened it, it decided to nerf my access. So, here we go. Smikes, I downloaded the paper, so we'll post that onto Discord as well, so y'all will be able to read it. But it does seem like parts of it are behind a paywall, unsurprisingly. Because that's just how this ends up doing. But you see how it's grayed out? That's where it is. As soon as I want to click on it, it's not letting me actually play it. I mean, Nerduino, they get you on that front. Survival benefit from screaming. So, astronomy show, this cannot be proven right now. This cannot be proven. There is a couple, I think it's the same as why they release volatiles and like smells, and why they have electric currents, and why they communicate via the mycelial network, is threat of parasite, threat of pathogen, threat of herbivorous threat of changes in the environment, like just like any kind of stressor should alarm your neighbors. Now, in theory, when a plant disperses in like a given field, they are genetically similar, because they might have come from the host plant that, you know, dropped its seeds, and it's not going to spread very far, so it's going to be pretty genetically similar. So there is a benefit to telling your neighbors, watch out, because they're genetically similar to you, and so you'd be benefiting that genetic information being preserved. But beyond that, you know, different species detecting the sound, that hasn't been proven if that's a benefit, because you can have like herd immunity almost, like all plants ready yourselves, there's an herbivore coming. It just needs to be, there's additional testing that needs to be done. Is there a chemical defense put out through the alert? So there are volatile compounds released, Astronomy Show, that also promote that. There are genetic changes with the chemical defense. So with volatiles, we know that there are changes in the transcriptome, so there are changes in the RNA levels. There's also changes in the chromatin structure. So the DNA that is exposed to turn on as a transcript is changed. So there are a lot of changes that happen. We don't know if that happens with sound. We do know that happens with the volatiles. Could it be more audible to dogs? I'm not sure, Coffee. I think Smice is saying he's got the auditory expertise on that front. Heptacuraptors, plants can hear each other screaming. Yes. It does seem, although Heptacuraptor, it is pointed out by the researchers that this might not actually be screaming because they can't prove intention of the plants. They can only prove that it does in fact happen. And then this, okay, so this, Smice, we can play this one. Again, we'll play the auditory cue one more time. It says audio sample of tomato sounds, downsampled, Smikes, to be in the auditory range, related to figure 1. So astronomy show with the Morse code, that is over the course of an hour, all the blips that sounds that they made. So it's not that frequent. That's in an hour put together into one sound clip. Cliff says that's because the Planets in Space movie called Silent Running. Really, Cliff? It's craziness, Cliff. I didn't know that. I'd be more curious if they had rhythm, if their rhythm had anything to do with it. It might be. The last tobacco plant was Kennedy. They were not happy. Kennedy. They were like, blah, 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 blah. It was a little bit maddening. But I think Smikes, it was a very well done paper because they tested 2 different plant species. They tested 2 different stressors, and they tested a variety of different ways. Anchored! I'm mad, Anchored. Guys, go check out the Anchored Albatross. Woodcrafter, woodburner extraordinaire. Anchored, I love your face. I'm very angry, Anchored. How do we know that they aren't picking up background noise? Any word on how they filter or test for that? So, the same reason I'm mad too, Big Gaming. I'm very angry at Big Gaming. They did test Nerduino. They subtracted away background sound. So they tested a variety of different, auditory, let's see, I think I have the actual, here we go. They had the empty box as well. Hi, Clement. Good morning, Clement. They had the empty boxes tested as well as with plants, and they subtracted away. They subtracted away the background noise to get the pure sound that is given off by the plants, and then they played that pure sound back to different plants. They also played the background sound to plants as well as a control. The background plants did nothing. Anchored, you won! Congratulations, Anchored Albatross. So that is one feature of it. So, right, they played back the background sound that was subtracted away. They also played the isolated sound. The isolated sound had an effect, but not the background one. So, again, Nerduino, this was published in Cell. Like, they did a really dang good job proving this. Nerduino, for me, I would like to see that this particular paper, even before it was published, demonstrate that there's changes on the molecular level. That there is RNA, at least some kind of transcriptome change. That's what I would have liked to see. I think that's probably going to be their follow-up paper. I think, though, it would have made sense to have it in this. Like, you've proven to me they have a reaction. I want to see that there is like a genetic reaction to this. Like, why does this really matter? And I think that final why does this matter was missing from the paper. But aside from that, it was really well done. It was really cool. No, so Clement, so this study was about plant communication, about how they exchange auditory information between them. I know Nerduino, but to get into Cell, I'm surprised they were not asked to do this. Hi, Epic with Sam! Sam, you're just in time for us to finish. How you doing, Epic with Sam? So that is the study of that is this paper tonight about plant communication. I know Andrew sees. I know Andrew's right. Chat. We Lita and I have tomorrow a pop-up event in town, just like we did last month. It is once a month that we're able to do it, so it is tomorrow. So we have to get a little bit of we have to get some rest, and then Lita's got to get sleep, and then we're gonna do the pop-up event. It's in town tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. My hope is the weather will be better than last time, because last time it got really chilly, and I hope Baby Alona will feel better. And I will look, Smikes. I am ready to go on topic number 2, but I know, Andrew and Smikes are like, look, Blent. You're not getting beauty sleep. We know that, because let's look at Blent anyway. But we want you to try to at least do a marginally good job.